All right, this one's going to be interesting. We are
Hmm.
combining two franchises to talk about one massive ranking. Alien, literally versus Predator.
Hmm.
This is Let's Rank Stuff. I am Henry Confidential. Austin Pezhal. Austin,
What's up?
generally speaking, what are your thoughts when it comes to these two franchises as a whole?
These franchises have always been ones that I've been the most intrigued about every time there's a new entry. These are two franchises that I'm always interested to see where they're going to take them. The mythologies are always cool between the two of them, and obviously when they cross over, we'll talk about them. But it's been two of my favorites. Since I kind of got into movies. Always seeing what they're up to. I think the first one I saw in theaters, if I remember right, because I wasn't old enough to see some of these entries, from the 90s and things. I wasn't old enough yet, but I think Alien versus Predator might have been the first one I saw in theaters.
Okay.
But at that point, I had seen everything up to that. I had that Alien quadrilogy, box set,
Yeah.
and bought the other Predator movies, on DVD, all that kind of stuff. So, I've always been a fan, and I'm always interested, excuse me, to see where the series is, which is kind of dead right now, I guess, because it's a Fox
Yeah.
property, and now that Disney has it, it's like, where do we go from here? Our last entry in either one of these was The Predator back in 2018, and it's been 4 years. So, nothing since then so far. I'm hearing rumblings of an Alien series on like FX or something like that. Is that the latest thing I'm hearing?
FX.
Some kind of
That's
some. I think I could be wrong, but it's something like that. That's like the latest thing I'm hearing is some kind of Alien series. But other than that, man, I don't know. So the days of the movies might be numbered. It might be shifting over to television, which is where a lot of things are going to, which is fine.
I
But we'll
wouldn't
see where
mind
it
it, but
goes, man.
FX is definitely not where I would want to see that. I would definitely want to see that as like an HBO series or
HBO, Showtime, something like that. Yeah, like something where they can really
honestly,
break
even if
out and like
I
have
mean,
some fun.
even if they like did something like on Apple Plus or something like that, where it's like
Hmm.
you could just contain it and you're putting all your resources just into that one, because obviously the
Hmm.
mythology of the Alien and Predator series, like you definitely want to kind of be expansive with the world, and you want to be precise because there's so much that could go wrong and so much that might go wrong if we talk about some of these movies
Right.
today.
Some of these movies, yeah, some of it has gone wrong already, but yes.
Honestly, I think my first actual theater experience for these was Alien Covenant, and
Mm,
then I think I saw. I think I've only seen the two in theaters, Covenant and the Predator. Um,
mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I don't think I caught any of like Predator or Alien re-releases in theaters, whether during the pandemic or just in general, like during anniversaries or whatever, or Aliens. So, and I wasn't like in on the series when Prometheus came out. Fun fact: I just watched it for this ranking, and ironically, I thought I'd seen it the entire time, and then I realized I have not seen this movie. So
Right.
it was
Maybe you've
definitely
seen
a
like
first viewing.
clips,
Yeah.
clips or trailers, but never seen like the full movie. Yeah, I could see that. I had a great experience with seeing Prometheus in the theater. Maybe we'll get to it when we get to my actual ranking, but like my theater experience for that was great. Yeah, just a lot of fun as far as the surprise of what was going on, or, and just I was with some friends and we just had a really good time. But yeah, as far as the earlier ones, I've seen Alien and Aliens in a theater. In a repertory screening, so Alien they show a lot around Halloween sometimes. If
Does
you
it
can
hold up
catch it.
for like visually and atmospherically
Yeah,
for the
no,
theater?
it definitely helps, with the atmosphere. The Aliens one I saw, I was by myself in kind of a smaller screen. It was at an older theater, kind of with one of their classic series, but it was still kind of cool because obviously that's like one of my favorites, and
Yeah.
finally getting to see it in a theater was just cool because I had never done that. And they don't show it a lot. They show
Yeah.
Alien a lot. They don't show Aliens a lot. They don't even show Predator a lot, which is
Yeah.
surprising. You'd think they'd show Predator a lot, because it's a classic '80s action movie. You'd think they'd be showing it all the time
And then
as
just
far as a
Arnold being a
repertory
name,
thing.
you just put him on the poster and you're just
Yeah,
like,
it's just
hey,
Arnold.
re-releasing an Arnold movie.
Yeah, I mean, just put that or Terminator or whatever out there. I'm sure people will see it just to see it. But yeah, it's an interesting two franchises that obviously eventually crossed over in comic books and video games and movies and whatnot. But yeah, they're I mean, we'll say the movies have been a mixed bag at best. We'll talk about it, quality wise. But I'm always interested to see how they expand on things, throughout the series. So it should be
Absolutely.
interesting rankings, though. I mean, there's 12 movies here, so the rankings could be all over the place with both of us. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. So before we get started, I have one more question. I want to do predictions, both for each
Hmm.
other, like vague predictions, I should say, for each other, but
Okay.
predictions for the comments too when people comment. What is your prediction that the mass appeal, the most common number one, is going to be for the comments?
I think the most common number one across the things will be Predator. I think Predator is kind of the most common, like, just because it's a very famous 80s action movie, like you said, with Arnold. It has a lot of mass appeal. It's got sci-fi appeal. It's got action appeal. It's got good tension. I mean, I think it's probably the most popular overall. Alien is, but only if you're in hard sci-fi, like a hard sci-fi fan. I would say, yeah, out of all these, Predator is like the one I would think, like, you ask the average person, like, hey, Aliens versus Predator, people are going to lean towards Predator, I think, just because that Arnold movie has such a big
Yeah.
impact on them. But
Um,
yeah, that's what I would say.
so for me, just being in this community for a long time, it's gotten to a point where the mass majority is Alien over Aliens, and
Hmm.
the mass majority, I think, is not like super high on Predator. So my prediction is actually going to be Alien for the comments. That's going to be the most common. So when we ask
Hmm.
what is your number one, that's my
Yeah.
prediction. And then so my final prediction for each other, vaguely, without trying to get into the minds of each other's rankings. Do you, because you know how we've done a bunch of these now at this point, do you think that I am going to have a ranking that is going to give
Heavier on
you
Alien or Predator, like
no,
on a heavier franchise?
just upset you, just it's going to, just for you personally in your take, you think
We'll see. I literally, because I don't stalk your letterbox, so I don't know. I don't know, and I know you watched some of these for the first time, or at least first time in a long time.
yeah,
Something like that to refresh yourself. So I don't know. I don't know which franchise you're going to lean heavier towards, if any, or older entries, newer entries. I'm not sure. You could probably guess where I'm going to lean to for
yeah,
most of them,
I do.
but yeah, I don't know, because I'm still getting to know your taste as far as, like, what you go for. But that's what makes it interesting, is like some of these I just have no idea, and I'll just find out as we go. But yeah, it's hard to make a prediction with you. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
so far out of all the lists we've done, Rambo and then now this, these are
Hmm.
the only two where I don't have a love in terms of franchise whole wide, where
Hmm.
I can just obviously, it's one of those where these are top heavy, and it's like well known at top heavy, so it's not really a discussion what's going to be at the top and stuff, but the middle and the bottom, that's going to
Hmm.
be the interesting discussion. So like
Yeah.
I don't foresee like you having any of the ones that I prefer at the top, at the middle, or at the bottom. So I don't have that upset, potential. It's
Right.
more of a shock of like, wow, that's what's higher than that, or the ranking in the
Hmm.
middle. So, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not
We'll
in
see.
terms of like upsetting. So I have no predictions. Like I don't think at any point I'm going to make a face that's like oof, like you
Well,
made
and
me make
I'll
some.
say this. I'll say this. This all these 12 movies, I don't think any one of these movies is like any one of the other movies. That's what's
That is
unique
true.
about this.
Yeah.
They all have a different feel. They've barely had any return directors other than Ridley Scott, for a couple of these.
Yeah.
So each one has a different look, a different feel, a different atmosphere, a different tone. There's a ton of tones that are all over the place with these as well. So that's what makes it interesting, is that I don't think there's one movie quite like the other movies. They all have a unique feel to them, which is kind of cool. So it might just lean on what tone you roll with, what you vibe with, is what the kids say nowadays. What movie you
Yeah.
vibing with? So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see.
exactly. And it's kind of the difference between the sci-fi, the horror, and the action elements of
And
like
the
what
action, right?
yeah, and that there's definitely a wide variety of it. So let's just go ahead and
Hmm.
get started. I'm gonna start with hopefully both of
Okay.
our picks, but my number 12 is Alien versus Predator Requiem.
Ding ding ding. Yeah,
Yeah,
not a hard one to predict. Ding
yeah,
ding. Yes, I'm exactly the same. So yeah, we can knock this one off pretty quickly. Yeah, this is I was interested to revisit it because honestly, there was like two movies on here that I was really interested to revisit, and this was one of them because I know I saw it in the theater, but I had a bad theater experience with this. I was sitting in like the second row, and it was already dark enough as it is physically when you watch the movie. Like there's a lot of dark sequences where it's hard to tell what the hell's going on, much less sitting in a second row. So when I put it on Prime. And I have a really good TV. I got a 75-inch 4K TV. I've got an Xbox One. I got heavy streaming, heavy sound system. I give it the best possible, chance I could. I think it has a few moments here and there. There's a few cool things about it. It's watchable. But it's very like poorly made. It's just very weird. Some of the decisions, like I said, literally, it's physically a dark movie. So there's like stuff going on. There's things blowing up.
I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that this was a made-for-TV movie or one of those
it's
direct-to-video sequels.
When you look it up, the directors are these Strauss brothers. And when you look up their thing, they only directed 2 movies. They're mostly visual effects guys. And the one they did after this was Skyline, which is a terrible alien sci-fi movie. It's a really bad movie. So it's not really surprising. It's just, it feels like they were just sort of directors for hire. Like, we got to kick out one of these movies just to keep the rights or something is what it feels like. Let's just throw... It was like a leftover script. Let's throw these aliens and predators in suburbia and have
feel
one.
Like anything that was
it's
well
just
drawn
weird.
Out.
It just feels like
it
feels like a script that was. It's like one of those scripts where they add the alien and predators later. It was like already something else, and they just like inserted something. They've done that with some Die Hard movies, where it's like we just make it a Die Hard movie out of something else. It's just kind of blasé action. Really forgettable character. I don't remember a single character in this movie.
And that's ironic because it kind of focuses on the characters a lot. It does the whole thing with the crush and the girl and the bullies. And it's one of those where it's like they're not, like I said, they're not unbearable. The acting isn't great, but it's not like as bad as you would kind of assume. It's just so, like you said, forgettable and just who cares? Like it doesn't, and there's not enough alien and predator. It makes no sense why they're all there, like story-wise. No. Like at least in the first Alien and versus Predator, which we'll get to at some point, at least it makes sense of why they've come together. Whereas in this one, it's kind of like all accidental, and it's just like, hey, look.
It's very sloppy. Like the first 5 minutes is so rushed, where it's like you got like this alien running around, and like the pred alien bursts, and it kills like a science predator, and then the other one it like lands on Earth, and there's another one that's sent from the predator world to like go find it, and there's aliens hatching with the father and son like in the thing, and it's like 100 miles an hour immediately, and you barely have time to be like, okay, what's going on? Like what are we doing? Like what's the setup here? And then we're jumping into like character relationships, and it's like let's just jump into it as quickly as possible and get to lasers blasting and like aliens crawling around like as quickly as possible, and there's just no time for any kind of setup, and it moves. I mean, I wasn't bored necessarily. It's just so poorly put together that it has to be at the bottom of this list.
So my initial review when I was writing this, I was like, I'm hesitant to give it like 3 stars because, like I said, it was like decent. Like I didn't hate it, and I can imagine rewatching it. And then I was reading other people's reviews. I'm like, all right, let me compare my opinion to theirs. And a lot of people were bringing up the Alien and Predator baby, and I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I just didn't even see that. I couldn't even tell.
It's called the Pred Alien is what it's officially called. The one that's like birthed at the beginning that they're chasing mainly through the movie is called the Pred, because it has like the predator mouth with like the alien body. It's weird, but you can't see it, so you can't tell what it's doing.
I couldn't even see it. I didn't even know. So just automatically I had to drop it down to 2 stars. I'm like, just the fact the whole point of the movie I didn't even know. I had to find out with reviews and watching videos. I'm like, no. So it's a 2 out of 5 star, and it's spoiler alert, it is the only negative review I have for this franchise. So although I said at the beginning where it's not I'm not beloved of the franchise as a whole, I enjoy these movies, and that's why I actually had a soft spot for this, and I was actually didn't hate it as much as I thought I might have. So
I got one other one. My next one is still on the negative side, and then from there it's like they're watchable and they start to get better, you know what I mean? But like they're in like that mediocre territory. But the next one, my number 11, is still in negative range, like with this one, you know what I mean? So
I'll let you go ahead and jump right into that. What is your number 11?
It's another one I was curious to come back to. It's Alien Covenant. I think I actively dislike this movie. I don't like Alien Covenant. we'll talk about it later, but with Prometheus, um, Prometheus and Alien Covenant are both like I think we can agree it's like more Alien Universe presents Prometheus and
Yeah.
Alien Covenant. Not like a straight up
Right,
Alien
it's like the
movie.
Book of Saw,
Yeah,
spiral.
the Book of Saw. Yeah, it's like
Spin-off.
or Creed. Creed is like a Rocky spin. You know what I mean? It's like in the universe, but not quite. So I was fine with that because we'll talk about Prometheus, but when you start with one thing and you're setting up interesting questions and interesting ideas and things, I can roll with that. I don't like where it goes in this movie like at all. I don't like that it's basically it's not an alien movie. It's like the David movie, and I'm
David
okay
and
with the
Walter.
David.
David and Walter.
David and Walter. It's the David and Walter show, and that's fine with featuring aliens on the side. And it's like there's too many weird things that I just can't roll with. I can't roll with David creating eggs. I can't roll with David creating these spores that get into you that turn into these albino aliens, and then it's like he wiped out this civilization, but he wants to create there's like 8,000 things going on in this movie, and I don't think a single one of them like just really works for me. There's too many just crazy ideas of where he wants to go. Really, Scott has talked about I want to make like 6 of these movies and eventually answer everything, and I'm just like, dude, if you keep making movies like this, like I'm just not going to care. Like by the time you get to the rest of these, which I don't think he is. Um, it's above AVP Requiem because it's obviously more competently made. Like Ridley Scott knows how to make a movie, where I can tell what's going on and it looks good and it sounds good and all that. And there are at least a few standout characters. I think Catherine Watterson and Danny McBride both stand out. They are at least memorable characters. And like at least you still have Michael Fassbender doing interesting performances, playing both David and Walter. But there's nothing that you can't see coming a mile away. Like the whole twist that it's like David on the like, who didn't see that coming? Like, come on, like, is that like a thing?
But I understand what you mean.
Yeah. I think it's kind of meant to be, and it's like really like did nobody see that coming like at all? Like I'm interested to see. I would like to see David playing around with the 2,000 colonists and like messing with their DNA, but like other than that, I don't care. I just don't like where they've gone from Prometheus.
I would actually like
so many more interesting things.
Since we were talking about like making a series, I would love to see a David series where it's like what he did during that 10-year span and just his process, everything. Because you could toy with what's going on in his mind as an AI, and you can kind of have his you can use his imagination as scenery in parts of an episode, but you definitely have to expand on that in like a series. You can't do that in a movie. So I would totally be cool with that.
We make a huge jump, and the fact that they just dropped the Elizabeth Shaw character from Prometheus off screen and with like no resolution whatsoever. I mean, that's the thing is like I can somewhat get over it, and that once I get past that, I can enjoy the movie. But like that lingers over that movie hard, to where like they were setting her up to be like the new big female lead, you know what I mean? I think it's just like somebody was just like, whatever, just drop it, just make it about Fassbender, and it's just and like he's. If she was still in it and they were some kind of dynamic there, and then you had a new crew come in, I'm fine with that. But it's like another crew coming down to another planet, looking for the aliens, finding a thing, finding this thing, finding that thing, getting attacked with it. It's like the same thing recycled over and over again that we've seen multiple times. And this at this point, it got stale for me. And my rewatch just kind of confirmed that. I had a negative reaction coming out of the theater, and I still had a negative reaction coming out of my rewatch. So that's just what it is. I'm just not a fan of this movie.
That is fair. I will talk about it later, and I would give my my former opinion and my new opinion then, because I don't want to spoil it. But my number 11 is unfortunately the only movie that I didn't get to rewatch for this entire thing, but I had seen it and I had general memories of it because it's not a complicated movie, so it wasn't much that. And I had my review on Letterboxd, so I was able to like kind of refresh my memory. It's still a 3-star movie, but it is my number 11, and that is Predator 2. I think it's the concept of it just being in the city. It just kind of doesn't. I don't know. There's something about the Predator that is like a jungle character that needs to be in that area.
It's
And
the urban jungle, Henry. The urban jungle of Heatwave LA.
the only thing I will give it credit for, it does feel like lived in and like sweaty and nasty and like
It's
that
a
heat
very
wave.
sweaty movie.
Yeah. So
Very
it's
sweaty movie.
and I think that is one of the things that is memorable for it, because it does feel jungle like, all pun intended. But the Predator, obviously, it's a great character and it's a great concept. So like it's fun. Danny Glover's doing his thing. He is what he is. He's getting too old for this shit. But hey, I'm gonna go fight a predator.
Yeah, right.
But it's one of those where it's just a nice little. It's honestly the dad movie of this entire franchise, where this is the one where you're like, I'm gonna watch this with my dad. I'm gonna sit back. There's not that too crazy stakes. You could tell they were kind of going for the Die Hard like vibes, and it was just kind of I don't know. It's just one of those that's just it came and went, and it's just I don't need to rewatch it, but if I ever do, I'm not going to be mad about it. It's fine. There's nothing about it that is offensive, but there's also nothing about it that's just like mind blowing and like awesome. So,
boy, am I going to throw the ratings off on this one? Just wait.
I can't wait. And honestly, I will add this right now. If I do, when I eventually do rewatch it, and I'm completely wrong, I will bite my tongue and I will admit that. But as of right now, as a 3-star movie, it's fine, and it's just it's the most. I will say this. With my 3-star rating, there's like a stretch of them that we're gonna get through where it's the 3 stars where they're fine. They do what they do,
right.
but they're at least the other ones above it are taking shots. Whereas this one, it's like I said, it's more of the dad movie, and that's why it just doesn't connect with me, and it's not going to be as memorable in the future. So, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is the first AVP, is Alien versus Predator. So yeah, the first one I saw in a theater. I remember being, like a lot of people, very, very hyped for this because, they'd already been doing it in the comics and the video games and et cetera, et cetera. And, it's watchable. Again, it's like the other ones. Like it's watchable. It's entertaining enough.
Still kind of dark.
It's still kind of dark because it's like in the Arctic, so it's like snowy and kind of dark, and everybody's using flashlights underground. So we still don't see a lot. But I still, the PG-13 rating is the one thing everybody complains about. Which I think it definitely hurts it. I don't think it completely kills the movie, but I think it hurts it because there's a lot of cutaways. It's like, oh, the alien is about to bust through the head, with the little tongue thing, and it's like, oh, we cut away, cut away to this, cut away to that.
Other movies with the R-rated where that's what adds to that's the memorable.
Yeah. So there's that. But I still do think there are at least a couple of memorable characters. I think Sanaa Lathan is trying her best. I think she's doing all right. Is kind of the breakout when she eventually kind of teams up with the Predator. Like I don't mind that kind of stuff. I think that's all right. The whole enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, I think, is okay at the end. I kind of dig that. The Predators are kind of the good guys in this movie, which is, at least I can roll with that because they can at least communicate somehow. The aliens are just these creatures, these survival creatures, and the Predator at least feels like a character you could somewhat communicate with and kind of go back and forth like a Chewbacca or something. Like you may understand you, but maybe you can't like communicate with him completely. But you can roll back and forth. Lance Henriksen, again, bringing him back, playing a different character is still kind of cool and okay. I like that.
Hey.
He's fine. A few decent character actors here and there. It's all right. I mean, this movie's all right. It's I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. That Requiem movie is way worse. At least this one, like, it breezes by. It doesn't do anything offensively bad. You know what I mean? I think it's perfectly watchable. This is a total cable like Saturday afternoon watch. Like if it's on cable, you could like have this on while you're like doing laundry and you're not going to hurt yourself. It's totally okay.
This is the start of your quote unquote positive ratings where it's like, so just to give a reminder of how I do my ratings, the 3-star, which is that reaches into positive territory. That's the quote unquote serviceable experience where it's like, it does the job. It does what it needs to be. It doesn't do anything extra or everything that it's trying to do. It kind of makes up for all of its flaws. It's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think this would be like a 2.75, 3 out of 5 kind of territory, like where it's watchable. There's like nothing like horrendous about it. Alien Covenant to me is like a 2, and AVP is like a 1.5. Like for me, like it's, they have moments, but yeah, nothing incredibly positive for me. But yeah, AVP is a fine little okay watch. It's all right. It's I don't have I'm not passionate about it either way or another. You know, it's just again, it's kind of forgettable like the other one. You know, you forget you watched it about a week after you saw it, but
Yeah, pretty much.
you know, but it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
and
all
and
right.
I think that's one of the things that kind of stands out for the top. Like we talked about this. I was talking about this earlier, where it's like it's this franchise or these two franchises are like top heavy. So it's like there's nothing that really
Hmm.
stands out for like this bottom in the middle of the pack. That's like, oh, that's what I'm going to like. You're not really watching YouTube
Right.
clips of anything from these movies. It's you know
Hmm.
you're YouTube clipping the top, and at that point you're like, shit, I want to watch the entire movie, so I'm just gonna watch the movie. You don't
Yeah,
really
yeah,
flip
yeah.
out these types of movies. It's all or nothing, but like in a good way, where it's like these movies are just
Hmm.
awesome. The top one. So it's one of
Yeah,
those where
yeah, right.
it's definitely interesting to hear people's opinions on the middle because it kind of showcases what their preference is in these types of movies. So my number 10, and this is either going to hurt your feelings or you're going to be coming up close on it, but that's Predators.
Okay.
And I
I
think
could see that. I could. It's higher on mine, but I could understand it. So
so
yeah,
and
yeah.
like I said, just a reminder, this is a 3-star rating. It's still a serviceable experience. It's still good,
Hmm.
but it's one of those where it's like I think the concept of the bait and just the hunt. You know what I mean? It's one of
Hmm.
those where you can only do it so much without like truly caring about these characters, and like they're fine. They're not like that. They're not bad by any stretch of imagination. So it's a movie that just came out last year, called The Hunt. It kind of did a similar
Hmm.
thing with this, where it's like that was more of
Hmm.
the top of the higher class that was hunting kind of like the poor class or whatever. So it's kind of that type of concept. Obviously this is with Predators, so it's one of those where it's like these guys are soldiers, so they're not really like that likable because they're all like combative with each other. Everyone's trying to be the alpha, and
Hmm.
Adrian Brody, like he's got like a doesn't quite have the leading man like stature and like a personality that I would want. And not even saying like Arnold, obviously that's he's one of a
Hmm.
million, but like even someone like what we'll even see talk about later in the Predator, like any of those characters, even Boyd Holbrook, who's not a big guy, he still has that presence of being like the lead. You would kind of understand why, like
The
you see him in Logan.
charisma, the
Yeah.
charismatic dude. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's something about
Hmm.
Adrian Brody's character. I love him as an actor. Like I like a lot of his movies, but something about him in this movie, it just doesn't, it's not as memorable as like the lead guy, the final girl, but for the action hero
Hmm.
type. And it's like all the other side characters are fine. The action is brutal. You can tell that they were like, we want to get back to what this
R-rated
franchise.
stuff.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can
Right.
tell. So it's
Yeah.
fun. It's similar to what I was talking about with Predator. So this would be a nice double feature with Predator 2, where it's like you warm up with your dad, watch Predator 2, and then you get drunk and you watch Predators, or you're like, all right, Dad, let's have a good time. And it's
Yeah.
like it's fine. It's a fun little cat and mouse movie that doesn't really add nothing in terms of large scale to like the universe, but it has a nice point of like this is how they survive, they hunt, and it's kind of what they do, and it gets
Hmm.
in the mind of the Predator, which it's nice. It's, well, I don't know, it kind of takes away from it, where it's like, why are they doing this? Like in the first one, like why are they doing this? They're just kind of like hunting, so it kind of like adds
Yeah.
answers questions you don't really want, but also the answers aren't like bad technically. So it's like it's inoffensible, but it's just a nice little throwaway one for me. So that's why it's my number 10. It's fine. If I've
Yeah.
ever forced to watch it, I won't complain.
No, no, and that's one where yeah, it's a little bit higher. We'll get to it in a little bit for me, but I would understand that. Like I'm not mad about like somebody putting Predators at number 10. That's not gonna like offend me because I mean it's definitely somewhat of a rehash of the original in that yeah, you got a bunch of soldiers in a jungle, yeah, at its base, but yeah, it's just the tables are turned where they don't know where they are, they're thrown into a situation, but they're still capable of defending themselves. They just are kind of figuring out as they go. Yeah, I like Brody in the movie. I think he's definitely doing his best. Batman voice.
Yeah,
More of a Michael Keaton
you
Batman
can tell
voice than
he's
like Christian
trying
Bale.
to be. He's
This
acting.
planet is a game preserve,
Yeah,
and we're the game. Anybody can do the badass voice if you just kind of slow it down just a little bit and
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 this
get
is
it
the
out there
scene that they're gonna clip out for the
and
trailer.
put it in the trail. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, baby. Have you noticed the sun? No, what? It hasn't moved since we got here.
Now that makes me think. I don't know why. I literally don't know why. Probably because you said the Batman voice. I would rather have had Christian Bale in this role and just have him be the guy.
I could have seen that because it would have been coming off of like Terminator Salvation. He was kind of
Yeah,
in that territory
yeah.
around then because this is
Like
like
that would have been
2010.
awesome.
Yeah, so I
Like
mean, that
you,
was
you had
something.
you have Arnie in Terminator and Predator, and you got Christian Bale in Terminator and
Right.
Predator. Let's go.
Yeah,
And,
there you
and,
go.
and then
Yeah,
we could
yeah.
do a mashup of like, all right, which one would you rather have? And then
Right.
probably Arnie's still gonna win.
I always forget, by the way, that Lawrence Fishburne's in this movie because he shows up like halfway through the movie, just kind of literally shows up and pops up out of nowhere. But I like the kind of dude who's lost his mind, surviving in the Predator Predator
He
planet. I
kind
think
of
he's a
does
lot of
that.
fun.
He did that in John Wick 2, just randomly popped up as a
Yeah,
homeless
he
guy. He
just
did
pops
that in
up, and I
Passenger
think
as the
it's like
captain who woke up. He's just randomly popped
he's
up.
yeah he's got that fu money.
He's
I think at
turning
this point
himself
that
into a
he can just
character
have
actor.
fun. Yeah, he's gone backwards where he's like, forget all this leading man shit. I just want to like chill and like do interesting shit and
I
just
want
show
people
up
to
halfway
forget
through
that I
and
was
have fun.
Morpheus and Furious
Right.
Styles. I'm a nobody. Like don't worry about
Yeah,
me.
right. I'm going backwards.
I'm not quite.
I'm gonna go back and be in like a Nightmare sequel, like I was in Dream Warriors as a random orderly,
Yeah.
and just show up and
Cleaning
do
up,
another
cleaning
future
up in
one.
the hospital.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
That's
I'm
a
gonna
lot of
do
fun.
that and just pop in. What the hell, Lawrence Fishburne? But
Oh,
yeah,
I love that.
I'll talk more about the Predator later, or excuse me, Predators later. But yeah, like it's a little bit higher on mine.
There you
So.
go. But what is your number 9?
My number 9 is The Predator, which I came back to, and again, that was another one I was curious about. I hadn't watched it since the theater, and so this one, I will say it played the best it's ever played for me on this rewatch. Because I reset my, I think going into it,
Separate expectations, yeah.
yeah, I went into it knowing the tone that it goes for after the fact, you know what I mean? And then going back to it, remembering what I didn't remember a ton about it, but I remembered like the kind of goofiness of it and a little more, it leans heavier on the comedy, like and
Sterling
stuff
K.
like that.
Brown
But
is the epitome of he knows what movie he's in, where he's just
I know he knows what movies in. My only problem
doesn't
with
work for
with
you.
the movie is that well, no, it's not that. It's just everybody's the comic relief in this movie. Everybody. So to me, it's like, did everybody have to be the comic character? Like everybody's cracking the jokes, including Sterling K. Brown. I think there's a couple of too many characters that kind of get shoehorned. I think you could have condensed a few of the characters, like smashed them into one. I literally thinking about it afterwards, you could have combined the Yvonne Strahovski character, Boyd's wife, and the Olivia Munn character into one, and you would have smoothed out the story. Like, just my pitch would be, if you smash them together and she becomes like more of a military scientist or like a scientist that's married to this sniper, and like, let's say,
whatever, so she's out
either that or you could also have Boyd Holbrook's character be the sniper for this Sterling K. Brown's team of the Reapers, and maybe they just find out what they're doing, or they don't agree with something that Sterling K. Brown is doing, and they steal some stuff to expose them or something, and they go on the run. Like, I think you could
Shooter?
Yeah, with Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
Something like that, where it's
turn it into something like that, and then maybe he has to join up with these goofy dudes to like protect himself from the dude. But I think you could have done that. That would also explain why, because Olivia Munn kind of becomes this badass. Like, I don't mind it, like, because she did the X-Men movie and stuff. Like, I know she can do the physicality, but I think it would make more sense if you combine the characters, and she was already the wife of the sniper. That would make more sense why she knows how to use a gun, and she's like a badass. Like, if you combine that and put that in her backstory a little bit, and again, you could condense a few things in this movie. I think it would be a little smoother.
I think there's something about her character, though, that she's just a scientist and then she becomes a badass. If she has like a badass background, so she's able to utilize that.
That's what I mean. If you had done that where she's the wife of Boyd Holbrook, that would make sense, that like a military guy would teach her how to be a survivor and like teach her how to use guns, and like it would make a little more sense to just smooth that. Wouldn't it be cooler if the wife and the husband were fighting for the kid at the end against like the super predator? Like, wouldn't that be like a little more? I don't know. Wouldn't that be a little more impactful? I think there's little things you could do to kind of smooth out the movie like that. That would make a little more sense.
I like that idea. So maybe because let her military and scientific background kind of start to, she's starting to side with the Predator because she's studying him. She's starting to get in the mindset, and now he's becoming the protective dad. And now they're kind of clash, kind of like what they did in Godzilla, but
something like that.
On a more of a personable level instead of a kind of
right. And so I think if they had just smoothed that out a little bit, maybe condensed the group of the Looney Bin guys, which is what they call them in the movies. They call them the Loonies. Like, I'm not, like saying anything. That's what they call them. Like, maybe just trimmed out one or two of those, to where like you just had a core of maybe Keegan-Michael Key and Thomas Jane's like kind of buddy thing, because they're good. But like you could combine the I'm forgetting like Nettles, the Hispanic character, and the Irish character. Like combine those into like one guy. You don't need two people,
I
and
like
then still
Trevante
have.
Rhodes because I love him as
No,
an actor.
Trevante Rhodes is awesome. As I thought Nebraska, he was like the best of the bunch. Like I thought he had a ton of charisma. I thought he was really great. Like I wanted to see more of him and kind of follow him. I thought he was great. And you could
I love
have
his
them
mental,
bond.
how he's unhinged, and it kind of, especially
Yeah,
his fate at the end, how he makes his decision, sacrifice himself, because it's
yeah,
like that's part of his character. Like when you meet him, he's talking about how he tried to kill himself.
yeah.
He's like, why? Just because, you know, man, I'm tired of this. You
Right.
know? Like
I
so,
just I think the
there's
movie
so much there.
there's good character stuff there. I think it's just a lot of mindless action that doesn't really have a lot of weight to it, which is why it
No memorable action scenes. I will
breezes
admit that.
by. The one where he's tearing up the science lab when he's like breaking out is pretty good, and he's just like slashing people up and he's stabbing people all over the place. By the way, brilliant piece of casting having Jake Busey being the son of Gary Busey from Predator 2 in universe. You know, literally their father and son in real life and in universe as Keys. I think that was a brilliant bit of casting because you know that's just a cool way to connect them and it makes sense. So that's awesome. But yeah, like the third act is a mess, and I know it was completely reshot. Like literally, they reshot the entire third act, and you can tell the movie kind of feels like a chopped job from the studio. It's like a bunch of chopped up stuff, especially in the second half. But you know, it still was. I was never bored. It was still entertaining, and it was still I still had some fun with it. Again, the characters beats are probably the best things about it, is what kind of kept me going. Sterling K. Brown's tone is kind of all over the place. He's like joking 1 minute and then he's like sadistic the next minute. It's a little wonky, but like it's still, again, it played better than it's ever played. I will probably go back to it and visit it again, just not anytime soon. It's not going to be one I put on a lot, but I'll probably go back to it again in a couple of years and give it another shot. So, you know, not bad, you know, not great, but not bad. And I think it was perfectly entertaining once you reset your expectations for it. I think it was okay.
Absolutely.
So.
It's one of those where it's like, it's ironic that in a horror/action movie, the characters are the best part, and the action and the horror is, you know, in the backdrop where it's less memorable, and that's ironic. You're not going to a Predator movie for the characters, which is ironic because a lot of people, like, you know, I hinted at Godzilla earlier. It's like you go to the Godzilla movie, you're like, oh my god, these characters suck, but the Godzilla stuff's awesome. So if you're okay with that, you're okay with it. So it's one of those where it's like this one.
Well, I'm a big Godzilla fan, and so when people complain about them, like, have you never seen any Godzilla movies at all? It's never about the people. It's always just about the kaiju monsters. Like, so the human characters are ancillary. Like, they're a complete thing. But
so that's so Predator not being as you know upfront and personal. It's that. So, but I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
But my number 9 is going to be one that it was a first time watch. And literally the only thing I wrote was, so I did not hate this. Alien Resurrection.
Okay.
It's first of all, it's a combination. I'm actually glad that, you know, obviously at this point, Alien 3 is not at the bottom in terms of like negative review. Like I said, the only negative I have is Requiem. So initially, Alien 3 was one of my most hated movies of all time. On rewatch, we'll see exactly how it changed. You know, maybe it's mid, maybe it's great. I don't know. But with that said, is if I would have seen this movie around that time when I had that Alien 3 hate, I would have hated this because it kind of goes into it. It's a nice flow in terms of like tone, what they're building up. It's Matrix meets Alien 3. Like it's that futuristic set in the future. Like this is a new world. Oh, you don't know what you're in. This is the world now, XYZ, but also like, you know, we kind of look up to, you know, all these types of things. And then the robotic / you know, clone AI, whatever they, you know, considered Ripley. But it's one of those where it's like you love Ripley's character. Like it's just little moments like the basketball scene when she's just kind of fucking with her.
Oh, yeah. Fucking with Ron Perlman, like doing the Harlem Globetrotter stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like kind of flirt. Well, Ron Perlman's kind of flirting with her. Oh, I like a girl, you know, playing hard to get, you know, all that kind of shit. And then like she just elbows him in the face and like and like he gets pissed and like
he's like, he's like, what are you? And it's like,
I know. Yeah, exactly. And because she's the 8th clone of a you know, somewhat experimental thing. Yeah, she's the 8th version that they finally kind of got right. Because there's the scene where she sees the previous 7 in like the lab.
Yeah.
And destroys them. But yeah, like it's a thing where I like going and seeing kind of what Weyland Yutani is up to. 200 years jumping into the future. You know, they're still trying to experiment with the alien and turn it into like a weapon, which has always like been their goal. And it's like, I think by now that you would have realized that like that shit ain't gonna work. Like it's You
scientists, man.
can't tame
They just
damn things,
they're all
man.
about the money, and that this
Yeah.
is a money thing, and it is what it is. But it's one of those where I had a good time. It wasn't boring. I like the atmosphere. I like everything on the ship. It had some nice horror elements. The design of the alien was good. It did a good job of mixing the CG with the practical, and it's like it doesn't stand out as much as the non-special edition Alien 3 Alien did when you first watch it, where it just looks like a PS1 game. So it's like,
Right.
and it has one of the things, the iconic some of the iconic scenes with the alien and the faces and the dirtiness. It does everything that you want from an alien movie. So like whenever I would see reviews or people talk about this, or like it's one of the worst movies ever made, I'm like, I don't remember the name of the director, Jean something, right? What's
Jean-Pierre Jeunet, because I just watched it. Like, I just rewatched Alien Resurrection like 2 days ago because I'm fascinated with this movie, kind of like Alien 3. Like, it's a fascinating movie.
It's well
like,
directed.
Just to see,
it's
good.
Like,
it looks good. He's a French director. He'd done some other movies, and he'd done like music videos. Like, he knows, he's kind of similar to Fincher. Like, he knows how to put a movie together and make it look good. I mean, he's got a color. It's got a distinct look to it. Again, different than all the other ones. It's got a icky vibe too. Throughout the whole thing, and feels kind of getting back to slimy alien. Ickiness. You definitely get a lot of that. And yeah, there's stuff that looks good and stuff that looks bad. The creature at the end looks bad, but it's just a weird design. But yeah, they were going for something, but I don't think they quite nailed it. But they're going for something.
I don't necessarily want to call it a twist, but just like the story, flip with the Winona Ryder's character, where it's like, she becomes AI, and it's like, it kind of toyed with you because at that time she's a big name. So I feel like in the 90s that was probably a big thing, and I feel like people just didn't know how to handle that situation. I don't know if they were just kind of going off of Scream, everything with Drew Barrymore, and then you turn her. I don't know what they were going for, but like it worked for me on this rewatch. I'd never heard of that before, so like when I watched, I was like, wow, really? That's good for you guys. And I feel like it just did a good job of setting all these characters up and setting this world up and being contained and just doing everything that I like personally from an Alien movie. So I did not dislike this movie by any stretch of imagination. So,
I think it's a solid movie. I'll talk about it again pretty soon. Not too far off. We're getting mine soon. But
I'm gonna stick with me, and I'm gonna go to my number 8 because my number 8 is Alien vs Predator. So since you already talked about it,
sounds good.
Real quick. So it's one of those things where, like you said, other than the PG-13, the aspect of the alien and the predators fighting was a lot of fun. It's one of those where it's like you go into Alien vs Predator or Freddy vs Jason because you want to see like them go toe to toe, and it's essentially you want to have a poster of a movie. You know what I mean? And that's what you're going for. You don't care about nothing else. Just like you were talking about earlier with the Godzilla movie, you're not going there for everything else. Everything else is bonus.
I want to see big monsters battle in a city and knock buildings over and shoot and kill each other. Like that's what you want to see.
And I like the concept of the Antarctica where they're frozen, they come back, and it makes sense. And so that's the difference between this and Requiem, where it just makes sense what you're going with. You're trapped. It's a kind of a mixture of like The Thing and Alien, and that's one of those things where those are two of my favorite horror movies. You know what I mean? So that's a nice little concept of like, wow, I can't believe you're bringing that together. And then you give the Freddy vs Jason twist as well of like the fighting and all that stuff, and it's a fun little movie that obviously could have been way better. Let's not act like it's great. Like I'm not saying nothing like that, but it's a fun movie where it's like people who poop on it, I feel like at that point they're either just not a fan of the franchise or they were going through a phase where you want to poop on
you could do worse than this movie. You could do worse than this. Just watching this, you pop this on Netflix or something, you could do way worse. You know what I mean? Than watching this movie. It's like 90 minutes or 100 minutes. It breezes by. It's easy to watch. It's got some decent little character actor stuff in there, and you got pretty constant action.
Why people want to like shit on it is just because of the Paul W.S. Anderson like name on it, where it's like he's one of those directors like, ugh. So you're like,
but at the time, let's be fair. At the time, he was coming off of both Event Horizon, which I'm a big fan of. I like Event Horizon a lot, and he did that in '97. Event Horizon is really good, and a lot of people still say it's his best movie. Great space horror. Speaking of Lawrence Fishburne, he's the captain. He's great. But yeah, it's great space horror. So he had some space horror in his background, kind of like Alien, so it was really good. And to be fair, he was coming off of Resident Evil as well, but Resident Evil at the time was a hit, and people kind of dug it for what it was. So he was coming off more positive vibes than what he would get into later when afterwards
Mortal Kombat,
he would
so it's like
Mortal Kombat, which people liked, overall, like again that, but like I feel like the Paul W. Anderson thing comes from now after doing like
Social media. Yeah.
six Resident Evil movies, you know, or whatever, and like people just get bogged down and just like, okay, enough already. Like they're just done with that. But like at the time, I thought the choice was okay, you know, like I understood it. And again, the movie is okay, like it's perfectly all right.
Let's
It
just
kind
put
of
it this
fits in
way:
the Zuber
if
then.
Paul W.S. Anderson did Requiem, that would be a better movie, no matter what.
Probably.
Like, he's gonna
Yeah,
add something
probably.
to it. So even
Yeah.
if it is, getting a little more lighting, because he's got
Mhm.
probably a little bit more
Mhm.
budget or whatever. So yeah, Alien vs Predator, it's a fine little movie. Once again, if it's on
Mhm.
cable and I'm watching it, since I'm PG-13,
Yeah.
that's probably the one that I will watch on cable. I'll be fine with it, and like, hey,
Right.
that's fine. So, what is your
Yeah.
number 8?
Okay, so my number 8, these next 4 picks are all in like 4-star territory for me.
Okay,
You know,
now
so
we're
like
hitting.
they're all into like good stuff. So all stuff that I really like and like the vibes of what they're going. My 8 through 5, I'll say. So 8, 7, 6, 5. And then we get into like 5-star territory for me. So my number 8 is Prometheus. So again, some of these I could on any given day I could play around with the ratings, but flip flop. But my number 8 is Prometheus, which again I think it's interesting when you look at who put this movie together because it's really Scott and it's Damon Lindelof who did like the first couple of seasons of Lost, and he's done some other movies like Star Trek in Darkness, things like that. I feel like he's really great at asking questions and setting up scenarios and setting up ideas and setting up concepts. So like this movie is always interesting to come back to because you can always grab something out of this movie, a different theme, a theme of religion, a theme of creation, a theme of mythology, a theme of like
the
gods
God complex,
and
it's there.
yeah, it's there. So like you can always pull something different out of it on each watch depending on what's going on in your life or whatever. And again, going into the movie knowing that it's more, like I was saying earlier, Alien Universe presents, Prometheus, as opposed to, this right before
It doesn't
Alien.
even have
Because
the
it's
Alien name on it, so I will give it credit that it's not.
no, that's what I mean. It's just people, I think, had their expectations as far as because the trailer had like the same font. I mean, we knew it was connected to Alien in some way, and it still is. It's still the engineers and the space jockeys, and the creature at the end is like an alien hybrid kind of a thing. It's getting there, but it's on a different planet. It's LV-223 instead of 426. All that stuff. I still think the movie looks amazing. I think it sounds amazing. There's some great set pieces.
One scene
again, I think all the acting is good.
It really gave me Mad Max.
The dust storm.
Vibes,
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. Like I like all that stuff, and I like a lot of the set pieces and the sets and dude, the whole sequence where she's having to get that alien out of her and like that metapod is one of my favorite sequences in the entire franchise. I think that thing is awesome. Like there's a lot of great stuff in this movie, and again, a lot of good questions and concepts, which is something Lindelof's good at. I just didn't like where it started to pay off in Alien Covenant. You know what I mean? Like I just don't like where it went. But if I go back and just watch, I like the questions. It's like think about Lost. People love the first couple of seasons of Lost, and then just didn't wrap anything up. And it just kind of left a lot of stuff on the table, or they didn't like the answers that they got. And the first 2-3 seasons of Lost, people were all in, asking interesting questions, asking cool concepts, setting up intriguing things. So it's like that. So I think if you reset your expectations and that going in, I think Prometheus is still a fascinating movie that you could go back to and pull something, like I said, a good concept out of it, whatever's going on, whatever you're studying, philosophy, all kinds of stuff, and really play around with it. I just think it just works as a sci-fi movie, as hard sci-fi. I still like it in that aspect too. So like just because it's at 8, I still like Prometheus a lot. I've gone back and watched some of these other ones that are a little bit higher, more that I just go back to more often. But I go back to Prometheus probably every 3 or 4 years, and really dig into it. So like, and like I said, I had a great theatrical experience. It was a lot of fun, just seeing where it was going to go and how it was going to connect and things like that.
I will say that in hindsight, I wish I would have had seen this in theaters, especially like I said, the one with the storm and and just the intrigue of like, where is this going, and just kind of seeing the engineers on screen, on the big screen with the lighting and all that stuff. I really feel like they would have popped. And it was like,
we saw an IMAX at like 10 o'clock, like the premiere night or whatever. Me and my buddy, and I looked to him halfway through and was like, I'm digging just like the mystery of this, like where it's going, like, just seeing the slow reveals. And I was just digging the vibe of it and the atmosphere and just the slow revelations. And I was digging the David character in that movie, seeing him slowly like turn on these people, getting that God complex and like, I can create some stuff, I can play around with this and
what are
play
your
God.
thoughts on Waylon being there like after as an old man and like
It's
what are your thoughts on that?
weird. It's a little weird. The Guy Pearce thing in old man makeup is strange. I understand the concept of it. Yeah, Guy Pearce, Benjamin Button. Yeah, going backwards. Yeah, it's strange. Like I understand. I like the concept of him trying to find like this fountain of youth with these engineers, thinking he can like cheat death because that's what he wants to do. Is he wants to beat death, and he hasn't figured out the way to. He thinks this is the key to it. So I like all that in concept. I think the makeup and the execution of his little weird to bring him back only to get his head chopped off or whatever, by the engineer, I think, or squashed or whatever it is. He gets like killed by the guy immediately. But and another mystery that's like, yeah, everybody kind of knew that Charlize Theron was like his daughter. Like I don't think that was like a like everybody kind of figures that out pretty quickly. But him showing up at the end was interesting, but I don't think it was executed as well.
Like you
Stack, Idris Elba. I mean, like, dude, I went back and watched this. I was like, holy shit, Benedict Wong from Doctor Strange is in this movie.
Skinny.
Like he's one of the pilot guys.
He's real skinny.
He's really skinny. Yeah, he's real tiny. The Solomon Kane guy from the last few Mission Impossibles is like the Irish guy in the movie. Sean Harris. Like I was like, oh my god, there's the Mission Impossible
Logan Marshall
guy. Like,
Green. Everyone
Logan
jokes
Marshall Green.
Tom Hardy light, but yeah, he's fantastic. He's fantastic.
But again, at the time he was an unknown, and now it's like, oh, it's the Upgrade guy. Like, oh, the Upgrade guy is cool. There you go. So yeah, people that you recognize now going back to
obviously as Shaw, like you said, she's more of she. I mean, she was the original girl with the dragon tattoo. So I mean, she's a somebody.
Well, and even Fassbender was just an up and comer at the time. Yeah. He had done a few things. He had done 300 and.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 300 and Shame, and he had done a few independent things here and there. But yeah, he was still kind of an up and comer at the time. He had just done X-Men First Class, so like he was starting to come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was just starting to break out. So yeah, good cast when you go back to it, and I think the movie's still pretty solid. Like I go back to it a lot. It's another fascinating movie that I just go back to a lot.
That is something I think no one can ever doubt Ridley Scott's ability to put an ensemble together. He does a fantastic job of bringing some names together. Either some people we don't know yet, and they're going to be someone he knows how he recognizes talent, or he's able to just get people in a room. So
yeah.
So my number 7 is once again one you've already talked about, The Predator, and the only thing I can really add to this is just the fact that it tries to do something. You know what I mean? It's trying to say something. I actually liked the general concept of everything with the son, of him potentially being on the spectrum, and like him that kind of like standing out for the race of being like the one. You know what I mean? I feel like it doesn't execute it like fully, and it doesn't. I don't really think it knows where it's going, but I think it's setting it up. I think Shane Black is like, all right, this is an idea, and this is something I can do with. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I know by time we get the sequel, I'll have it figured out. I really feel like it's one of those where it's like in practice, like it's like what you're talking about with Prometheus. Like I don't mind this. I just need to know where it's going. It needs to pay off.
Right.
So you're never gonna get that answer because we're never gonna.
We're not gonna get a sequel to this movie.
We are not gonna see the Predator killer.
We're not going to see a Predator in general, I think, for a while, unfortunately, which kind of sucks because I like the Predator as a character. I think it's always weird that we always have to have this like a super Predator. Like I think the Predator is still cool enough on his own. We don't need like an 11-foot tall Predator. Like I don't understand this.
He's damn near unkillable by himself. Like it's so invisible. Like there's so many elements to it that I feel like the reason that they tried to do the super Predator is to give humanity to him, and that's not what the Predator is. There's no humanity in him. And like it's just I don't know. But it's still a fun one. Like I said, I like the dynamic of all the characters. It's fun. I love Trevante Rhodes and like his chemistry back and forth with Boyd Holbrook. I think they do a great job of like.
I haven't seen Moonlight, to be fair. So I know he's in Moonlight. It makes me want to see it because I liked him in this movie. Like I said, he's got that charisma and that line delivery to where I wanted to see more movies with him in it. So like that gave me like that end where like I want to go through his filmography now and check him out. Okay. So like maybe that'll put me over.
So in this movie how he has his vulnerable moments, not many, but he has some moments where he's like you're like, wow, there's more layers to this guy. 10, multiply that by 10 in Moonlight. He's only in the third act.
Gotcha.
It goes in layers. He's only in the third act, but it is holy cow, it pays off, and it's a lot of like his face. You know what I mean? Look how big that dude is, and then when you see this character in the movie, you know what I mean? I love him, and I want to see him in more stuff. And I think they're oh fuck, what did I look up? He's going to play a character, a big character. It's
in something.
yeah, it's something. I'll look it up real quick. But yeah, so the
I'll,
last
I'll look it up. You keep talking about the movie. Yeah.
but the last thing I will say is I do like the Olivia Munn character. I just wish that she wasn't so. I don't know. I feel like it was just kind of rushed of how they finished. Who she was going? Oh, Mike Tyson. That's who he's going to be. He's going to be Mike Tyson.
Oh, okay, so, interesting.
Yeah,
I thought Jamie Foxx was going to be that. I guess they switched it. So okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So anyway, like I like him as an actor, and I definitely want to see more. So it's one of those, and like the Keegan Michael Key, where it's just it's funny, like him and Predator and Jordan Peele directing Us, and horror movies, Get Out and Us, and now the upcoming Nope. It's like these guys are more than just comedians, even though they're doing they're standing out and they're doing their stuff, but they're more than just comedians. So I like that. So yeah, it's more out of honestly at this point, without having rewatched Alien Resurrection multiple times, just the one time. This one is just the most watchable of. This is the top 3-star one for me. Like it's just below that 4-star because I will admit I know there's not going to be much after this, let alone nothing. So it's it doesn't hold any weight in terms of like it's not going to go anywhere. But is like I will put this on before I put any of the ones before it under it on. So that's why this
makes
is
sense.
the top of my 3 stars. But and now I'll go back because this is the one you just finished. So I'll just go up. My number 6 is Prometheus.
Okay.
I am glad I watched this because, like I said, I thought I'd seen it. I realized that I saw it when I was dating a girl, and it was just in the background at the house, and I just walked by it a few times, so I was familiar with the scenery, and then seeing clips and trailers and being on the internet. So I know I'd seen stuff, but I had no idea what this was. So everything we talked about the cast, it's a good time. I love the sci-fi elements to it. Like I gave it a lot of credit that it really intrigued me of what they're doing with this world. It expanded the world, and it set it up in a good way. And when I talk about Covenant, which hasn't come up yet, I feel like they do a good duology of setting it up and paying it off. And like I said, my thoughts on Covenant changed because of I realized that I hadn't seen Prometheus yet. So now that I've seen both of them, I am happy with the results. So Prometheus, it's beautiful. It sounds good. That score is banging. Like it does it. I had my subwoofer was going off during this, and it's a nice world. You know what I mean? So I wish we would have gotten more Shaw in Covenant. I will admit that because of what it built up in this movie. But I'm happy with it, and it has a lot to say. And that's why I said at this point we're getting into the more mythological, like the conversation starting material of this franchise. Perfect at this, some of the ones are
the stuff that has a little meat on the bones that you can chew on a little bit. You know what I mean? So right.
So now this is the first of my 4-star ratings where it's like this. It's got a lot to say, and if it becomes more rewatchable, it might jump up. But as of right now, I'm happy with this at 5 or 6, and it's fine by me. What is your number 7?
My number 7 is we just briefly talked about is Alien Resurrection. So 7 is Resurrection. I like this movie. Like it's another one I'm just kind of fascinated by that I always kind of revisit every 2 or 3 years, just to kind of check in on it and see my feelings on it. But I've always kind of dug the vibe of it. It's just I love how weird this movie. This movie's just so, again, with the French guy directing it feels very European and kind of weird. Again, they all have a distinct feel to them. And this movie just feels like, I think that it's intentional. It feels like, it's a weird word to use, but it feels kinkier, with all the geeker stuff, but that's intentional because, Sigourney Weaver had this obsession through the series that she wanted to have sex with an alien and like do all this weird stuff. Like, and she kind of does in this movie. And this movie's just
franchise
like,
has a lot of
icky.
Behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, like a lot of stuff like that. But that was like a thing, like in her contract. Like, okay, whatever, sure.
I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna fuck an alien.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fuck an alien. Yeah, like it's those weird things of like, and Harrison Ford come back to Star Wars. It's like I'm gonna die in this goddamn movie. I'm not doing like 3 of these things. You know what I mean? Like it's all that kind of stuff. Like so, yeah, she had the same thing going on. But this movie's like weird, but I kind of dig the vibe of it. Brad Dourif's a slimy weirdo in it, which is always great. Like Chucky himself, just doing his thing and being, out. Yeah, I mean, he's, when he's up on the glass, just being like, and just like licking the glass. He's just being a weirdo, like, which is just fun. And again, I love the crew of the Betty, like, Ron Perlman and Michael Wincott, who they bump off way too early, who's just so charismatic and cool. And then like he gets bumped off for like no reason. That always disappoints me when I go back and watch it because I think he's great. But yeah, you get like the Christie guy is cool, and the dude in the wheelchair like is even badass, like pulling the gun together from his like his wheelchair, like and just fighting back. Like he's fun. I think the underwater sequence is a lot of fun. It's a great little set piece, something different, that we haven't seen in any of the other movies. And again, this movie just has a cool. I just dig on the vibe of this movie. I think it's nice and atmospheric, and it breezes by. It's not very long. It flies by, and yeah, I just kind of dig how goofy and weird and icky this movie is. It's just always one I come back to a lot.
Exactly.
So I like it. I like Alien Resurrection.
There you go. And like I said, I can't wait to rewatch it and let it grow on me
Yeah.
even more. So
Yeah, it's a good one to go back to like every like 2 years or so. You know what I mean? You go back to it, you check it out, see how you're feeling, how you're vibing with it. Like it's a good one to just breathe on for a little while, and then you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, this movie is kind of weird but kind of fun. Kind of goofy and silly.
it's funny because you
Yeah.
say watch this like every 2 years. We're gonna get to the
Yeah.
movies up top where it's like you're gonna watch those a couple times a year, and we're really
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, there's some of my top, three or so. I watch each one of those installments several times a year. So yeah, like definitely. But these ones in the middle, I go back to every year or two, at least once or so.
So,
and
like
pop
you said,
them on.
this was a good franchise for you to combine, and I'm happy that you're getting to talk about.
Yeah.
You're giving me a lot of insight on your love for this, and I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how you felt as a whole. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, I like both of these series. Like again, they vary in quality, but like the fun ones are fun, like and the good ones are good. And like I said, each one has a distinct feel to it, which is why I go back to them a lot, because you can, depending on your mood or what you're in the mood for, like action or just sci-fi or
and not feel stale because
no, you don't feel stale at all. Every one of them is completely different. So it's interesting, and that it's not like a Friday the 13th series where you feel like it's just Jason slashing up the same people over and over again, whatever. Yeah, each one has a distinct atmosphere and whatever they're going for. So that's always interesting. So
there you go.
All right.
What is your number 6? I'll stick with you.
Well, my number 6 is one we talked about on our other thing, Alien 3. So Alien 3 is my number 6, and we already touched on it a lot, so I won't touch on too much because we talked about it in our Fincher series. Go watch our Fincher series. But yeah, again, I really dig the atmosphere of this movie. Once I get past what they do to the characters of aliens, like once I get past that, because it still makes me angry.
So we'll just double down on
it. We'll just talk about it. Yeah, I mean, I still dig it. I still dig the themes of what they're going for. I like this prisoner thing where they're like religious and they're trying to repent, but they're still got these instincts and these things that they're introducing the woman into the thing.
One of my favorite elements of like these guys are like murdering rapists, and they look to her to kind of be the boss because she's the only one with the experience of having fought an alien. And it's one of those where it's like, especially in the 90s, this was 1990, where it's like it's not the pro woman thing that we're seeing now, which you want to have that heroism, but it's not forcing it on you. This one, it's all about the character and what it built up beforehand, and it feels natural and organic, and it's one of those you're like, that's why Ripley is one of the most all-timers.
Well, and because it's like if we were dealing with a guy coming in and like some killer trying to bump off the prisoners, it'd be one of those things where it's like, oh, we can handle this, but it's like, okay, we don't know what we're doing here, and you've dealt with this. Like, we're gonna look to you and put aside, our things, and then just let you be in charge. Like, yeah, what do we do
our
here?
Rapes in our pocket. We're actually gonna
we'll put in our pocket for later, and we'll see. But yeah, like I think Sigourney Weaver's excellent in this movie. Like, I think she's giving a really good performance. Charles Dance is great until he exits the movie kind of unceremoniously, but like he's really great up until he does. And I think Charles does a great job. Charles Dutton is great. Yeah, Dutton is great. Like his delivery on a lot of those, like the eulogies and his speeches.
Speaking of character actors, he's a fantastic.
Yeah, he's good.
Actor. When he pops up, you're like, he's just got the persona about him. You're like, how is this guy not a leading man? He's just got I was just rewatching.
He should be a bigger star than he was.
Yeah.
Like, because he was in that, he was in Rudy.
Him in that, and you're like, man, this guy just pops up, and it's like, man, this he reminds you of like Cop and Die Hard, where the Reginald V. Johnson, where it's like, man, he could be like one of the ones we talk about. We just don't, and it's a bummer.
We just don't.
Job,
yeah, he's good, and all the other people that pop, like, I just kind of dig on this movie. Again, I won't spend too much time on it. We'll get into our top ones because we talked about it on our Fincher. Go see our Fincher thing if you want to hear a little bit more. But I'm definitely an Alien 3 defender. Like
the only thing I'll really touch on this is just to kind of repeat. If you've not seen the special edition, I highly recommend it because
the longer version, please. Yes,
because it expands on the world and the character moment. And I will never go back to the theatrical because the theatrical was a 0.5-star movie for me, and this bumped up to a 4-star. That honestly, could go to 4. Like it's my 5, and it could depending on. I feel like just my 4 is a little more fresher at this point. And that's why I went there. But yes, this I highly recommend.
Once people get turned on and can roll with Alien 3, I feel like people see it. You know what I mean? I think people just have this reaction. It's definitely a cult thing. Like, we're the defenders of this movie, and I see it online all the time. Defend this movie, and I'm one of those people. Like, I've always defended this movie and always rolled with it. And even from the first time I saw it, like, I just kind of dig on it. And yeah, I think it's better than people kind of make it out to be. Again, we had that whole discussion on the Fincher thing, so I won't go too far into it.
I just wanted to repeat it. If you've not seen the special edition, I highly recommend it, and then talk later. So what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Predators. Is Predators with Adrian Brody. I think it's better than it has any right to be when it actually comes together. I think it's ridiculously entertaining. The fact that it literally starts with the dudes falling out of the sky, with like the parachutes and stuff, is like a great just kick in the ass. Like, we're off to the races. Just throwing these characters in the shit, and like, and it's different because it's not all this team that knows each other. It's all these kind of badasses from different. I like the way it's badasses from different walks of life. Because you've got Adrian Brody's like a mercenary sniper kind of guy, or mercenary guy, and then you got the sniper chick, and then you got the Spetsnaz, dude with the Gatling gun, and you got Danny Trejo as the drug cartel enforcer, and the Yakuza, mafia guy, and you've got Topher Grace as like what he ends up being, just kind of a Dr. Kevorkian kind of medical serial killer. Nerdy guy. But you've got Walton Goggins, who, like, it was before he was really famous, with the Tarantino stuff, like playing this like death row inmate kind of a guy. Like, I like all the different cast of characters and how it's like all these badasses from different walks of life and different backgrounds. Like, that's just fun, the way they interact with each other and have to survive. And I just like it being set on that other world. It sets it apart, where you're discovering the world like them. They're just dropped into this, and you're kind of figuring it out with the characters. And like I said, Lawrence Fishburne showing up, just being a dude who's completely lost his mind. He's whacked out, and he's completely just off the hinges. He's a lot of fun, and I just think this movie's a lot of fun. I just think this movie's like super breezy and entertaining and fun, and it goes from, and again, it's like the original. It's kind of sort of a retread, but I think it's still well done. And all the guys with the guns and everything, and it ends up with Adrian Brody fighting a predator by a campfire with a but he ends up with a hatchet, just fighting the thing, going primal, hand-to-hand combat and doing his thing. And as the ending's kind of ambiguous, and I would have liked to have seen a sequel to this. I wouldn't have minded if they had kept going with it. But yeah, I defend the Brody thing, because I think your average mercenary looks more like Brody than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, they don't look like a bodybuilder. So like, your average mercenary or special forces guy looks more like a regular guy, who's just kind of toned and lean and more of a regular looking dude. So I'm okay with it. I think he pulls it off enough. But I think the whole package is still just super fun. I like the mystery of it and the setting, and I just really vibe on this movie. I think Predator is a lot of fun, and it's probably better than it has any right to be. I just think it's entertaining. So,
I definitely, it's one of those, like I said, if my dad ever is like, hey, let's watch this movie, I'm totally fine with it. So I have no issue.
I like your dad analysis, but I'm not a dad. And I really like, it's like, I just like this movie as a movie.
Yeah, right. But, you're agreeing with everything I'm saying with the dad metaphor. But
with the dad thing, but I like,
not me.
Well, then again, I'm 35, so I probably should have been a dad by now, but I'm not. So, I'm just a single dude.
Another topic for another discussion.
Yeah. But I'm not going to be.
Beers and a little more.
I'm not ever going to be. So maybe I vibe with the dad movies. Now that I'm later in life and I'm not 20 years old anymore. But
let me rephrase. This is a cool ass uncle movie, and
no, I am an uncle right now, so that makes sense. But it's like, oh yeah. Lately, I've just been watching all these like Liam Neeson movies and like Clint Eastwood movies, and I'm just I don't know. I just want to watch Paul Newman movies. Like, it's weird. It's just
I'm in this weird kung fu.
Phase. Yeah, I don't know what I'm watching.
That is a blast. So I am going to talk about my number 4, because this is the second to last movie that we haven't brought up yet, and this is the biggest surprise for me, because I did need the rewatch, but Alien Covenant. And the
Okay.
reason I am going to
I'm
go,
open to hear. I
yeah, yeah.
know that this movie is polarizing, so I know people dig it. So I'm fascinated to hear what you
So
dig on it. You
the
know what I'm saying?
reason,
I'm open to that.
so the reason that it worked for me on this one is because I had seen Prometheus, so I understood the story stuff that it's
Hmm.
going with this in this movie, and then
Right.
B, as I've grown, like you saw my top 10 from 2016, that video, so you assume that Aliens was
Hmm.
going to be on my top 100, which it just, spoiler, wasn't, but you 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 ass- you assume that I was going to go for those vibes. So as I've grown, grown more toward the Alien vibe. I like the
Right.
atmospherical stuff and the creepiness. And
Hmm.
this does a good job of combining a Prometheus sequel and an Alien prequel. So I really think it did a good job of combining those tones that really worked for me. It's beautiful. I did like the characters. Like you said, I liked Danny McBride. I liked Waterston, and I actually liked I never like him, but Billy Crudup, like there's something about like he did a good job of just working within the crew. Like he
I didn't realize it was Billy Crudup going back to it for like the longest time. I was like, that was Dr. Manhattan? Like, oh,
yeah,
okay. I was like, all right, all right. Well, and we should mention Juicy Smouliers in this movie for like a minute. And he gets fucked up worse than those Trump guys fucked him up, am I right? Waka waka. you know.
yeah, he had more than a foot long in this one, but
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
So I think that the reason that this works for me is because there's multiple relationships in this movie. So you get that
Yeah.
you get the concept of what we got in Alien of the quarantine and like, hey, we can't do this, but then you also have different elements of a lot. It gets the question in your mind of like what would I do in this situation, whereas in like some of these movies you don't really have the option for those because it's kind of like A or B, there's no gray area, whereas there's a lot of moments in this movie that kind of take its time in building up, like, and also the beautiful, like when he steps on the egg, well, it's not really an egg but kind of like the pus plants,
The
and
spore thing.
yeah, and it goes
Yeah.
through his ear. Like that was like really cool visual. You know what I mean? Like Ridley Scott's an old dude,
Mhm.
and he does some good visual stuff. Like he's still got it. So it's one of those where it's like it's very atmospherical. And obviously we didn't see it till the end, but the big trailer moment is the shower scene, and when the alien is in there, and that's just real creepy. Even though it's towards the end, it still is awesome, and it has that indent in my mind. And like I said, it's because I understood the Prometheus stuff. It's swift. Like it's only 2 hours pretty much on the dot. Before credits, it's a little under 2 hours, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. It If you don't like the answers of the questions, that's fine, but it answers all the like there's no continued questions after the fact. I feel like it either answer the questions, you're either cool with the questions or you're not. You know what I mean?
Maybe, but I feel like this was still a middle movie to where I could maybe roll with this movie more if he finishes the trilogy and maybe it sticks the landing and I understand a little bit more of what he was going for here and see where it ends, because I don't
So
think it has really a definitive ending on
no, no,
this one because it's
I
still
will.
very open ended.
I will agree with that. It
So,
doesn't. It doesn't. It's like in terms of the entire story, it doesn't have the endings. But in terms of
mhm,
everything that's happened in Prometheus, answer those. But like this world still has questions. But like by the end of this
mhm,
movie, you're not thinking of those questions. They're just they're still in the open. But it does a good job of like closing a lot of the gaps. And I actually really love the concept of David because it kind of hands down that God complex of like Wayland is now his creator, and then he wants to continue creating, and he kind of goes to the extremes to
mhm,
create and but also like remain alive. And then that's kind of what he passed down to David of like, hey, it's like the Hereditary thing, like with you're like your dad, and it's like David becomes that,
mhm,
where it's like he goes to these extremes to create this alien, the specimen, like the scene where Billy Crudup's about to shoot the alien and he's talking to it and he's like humanizing himself, David, as an AI. And like you're like, wow, he's really connecting to it. Does he
mhm.
control the alien? Is it just one of those connections? What is it? And it's like he really feels, I don't want to say human, but he has, personality to him that like it connects, and you don't, and it's so like the best villains are the villains that you don't agree with, but you understand why what's going on in their mind, and like
Well,
why
you
they're
understand their motivation, and the villains think they're doing the right thing, or they
exactly.
think they're in the right, or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I totally am cool with the David thing, and that's why I like the David Walter dichotomy of like the separation of the two of the it's like
Mhm,
everything with these movies, the upgraded models, the small tweaks, tweaks or even the major tweaks. Like you're always going to be able to see the difference. And like, you know, the fight sequence between them, you know, when they fight, you know, because Walter can heal because, you know, that's just part of their programming. And then David can't. And it's one of those where it's like, by the end, I actually saw a video of this, you know, as I was just driving home from work earlier, because this is one thing I didn't pick on, but he got stabbed in the neck when she stabbed him, and then he didn't have that in the end. So it's one of those twists. Like, was he able to like take off David's head or Walter's head and kind of swap it, or was he able to? Because they're AI, so you're able to like, you know, do stuff like that. So it's one of those where you're like, it just, there's some cool things that, you know, that you can have, and also just the acting. You know, people like to meme the flute scene and the kissing and all that weird stuff, but when you really think about like what this character is, like, did he kill Shaw because he couldn't control her? Did he kill her because it finally clicked that his emotions that he was faking weren't real, and it kind of pissed him off because he couldn't like really, you know, get what he was going for? Or did it become of a kind of where he's just out of control, and is he crazy? So it has a lot of, there's a lot of layers.
I think it's more of just he only had this Shaw to work with to keep his urge to keep experimenting and keep creating and keep, you know, playing, you know, with this creation complex that he ends up having. He only had one person to work with, so it was like, you know, unfortunately she's a casualty of that, where I don't think he wanted to kill her, but it was like you know, it was one for a lack of options.
There's elements in the movie where he actually has conversations where he's talking about her, and you can tell that he's not like faking it. Like even if it's him trying to convince himself that he felt some emotion towards her, it's one of those where it's like there's something there, even if it's like a 1%, and that just adds layers because he's not just a mindless robot. So like whenever you're thinking about all these decisions he does in terms of like killing people or, you know, setting up the alien concept and all that stuff, it adds layers to his character, because you know he's not just doing it, you know, he's not just a Bond villain where he's like evil destruction, that's it. Like you really feel that like he is doing this for the greater purpose in his mind, and I connect with that. So like it's one of those where it's like I am really glad that I rewatched this after watching Prometheus, because it added all those layers that I didn't even know were there on the initial rewatch, because they weren't layers at the time, they were just unanswered questions or just questions that I had because I had no idea what was going on. So I went in for the alien stuff and I came out with Prometheus questions. So now that I have the answers, or at least some answers, it really worked for me. So it's one of those where it's like I am glad I revisited it, and like I had a good time. So it definitely
I think it works better as a Prometheus sequel rather than an Alien movie, and because I think the Alien action is fairly cookie cutter and like retread, you know, area where I don't think it particularly stands out as particularly great like Alien action, you know, if that's what you're looking for in this movie. I think it's some of the lesser Alien action of the franchise. So I think it works better as if you're going into it looking for more Prometheus stuff than Alien stuff, you know, if that makes sense. I think you're going to get more enjoyment out of it if you see it that way. Just as a fan, you know, I just don't really like where it's going. And again, if he's able to make his third installment and bring it full circle and maybe put it into a better context to where I see where it truly ends up, maybe I can roll with it better on a rewatch. But as of right now, I'm just kind of not really with it, you know, like I've kind of soured on it where I would see it, but I would not be excited for it at all. You know, I would be just more curious to see where it ends.
And the last thing I'll say, the difference between this movie and The Predator, it's even though that we know that we're not going to get any Predator stuff, and there's probably a high chance that we're not going to get any follow-up stuff for this movie. At least with in this movie, it has some high concept ideas that like I can still I can invoke my imagination. Whereas in The Predator, even all the imaginary stuff, it's more like, you know, two action figures just butting heads. There's not much that it really built up of that. So
I don't need to see Predator Killer in action in another movie, you know, against like.
Whereas in this movie,
I don't need to see that. But I again, the ending of where Covenant ends up, you know, with David having this playground of like 2,000 colonists and all the pods to like play around with and see what he comes up with, you know, while they're on this journey or whatever, and where he ends up, you know, if he diverts the ship or, you know, there's places you can go with it.
You got to think about it.
Play with
in
it.
Alien, there's only one alien. which is fine, but
Mhm.
that's in its own planet. But in Aliens, the colonists where there's hundreds, so it's
Yeah.
like, how did we get to that point? And the Queen, and like
Mhm.
there's stuff, there's an in between that there's
Yeah, right.
something that could work with. So that like yes, I
Mhm.
I feel like it works more with the what if that we might not get than in the Predator. So that's why that's my number
Yeah,
four.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what is
Right.
your number four? Potentially a movie
My
we've
number
talked about.
four, I'm getting into my top ones, although my one and two are my one and two. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I don't think they're gonna switch, but so there might be some controversy here. My number four is Alien. Alien is my number four. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right, we're game.
Okay. So Alien. So a lot of people know I've always been more partial to Aliens than Alien, just overall. I like the more action oriented stuff than the super atmospheric stuff, which is odd because I'm the horror guy. But to me, Alien, and again, this is a great movie. I'm not putting it down whatsoever. It's an amazing film. It's just one that I have to be in the right mood to watch. So I've only seen it maybe 10 times overall in my lifetime, as opposed to my other ones in my top three that I've seen dozens and dozens of times, like literally, maybe, like that sort of thing. So I have to be in the right atmosphere for it, in the right mood. Every time I do, I want to have my full attention to it. I don't want to watch it casually, because I feel like there's stuff in here where I want to get sucked into it, and I think he does a great job of doing that when you do sit down and just watch it. A lot of the concepts in it, it's just a little slow for me to get going. I think once it does, it's really great. But yeah, it's very hard sci-fi. It does the horror stuff really well. I like the world it sets up. I like the swerve of Tom Skerritt. Do you think he's going to be the hero? As Dallas, Captain Dallas. He's the stoic, kind of late '70s, handsome dude. He's the captain. You think he's going to be the hero, and he gets bumped off, and then it diverts to Ripley, who's had the better ideas the whole movie about, no, we should quarantine. Like, why are you letting the guy on the thing? Don't let him out. Quarantine this thing. She's the smart one, and she's doing all the practical stuff, and she's great. I think the cast is excellent. Ian Holm as Ash is awesome, and his turn and reveal is incredible. I think he's top notch. I like Yaphet Kotto a lot. I've always been a big Yaphet Kotto fan, and Harry Dean Stanton and all that stuff. Veronica Cartwright. So yeah, it's really great for me. I just have to be in the right mood to watch Alien, and I've just been more partial to the faster paced, kind of bigger set piece kind of stuff overall. But again, Alien it's in my top of the series almost. It's right there. It's just I haven't watched it as much as my other ones. That's literally all it is. It's I'm a bigger fan of the other movies on the list. That's all. That's
That
literally all it
is
is.
fair. So I will leave it at that, and I'll jump to your number three.
My number three is Predator 2. There's the controversy. So
There we go.
Predator 2 is my number three. So there's the WTF of the thing right there, and the one I'll get shredded for, I'm sure, online. I fucking love how bonkers and batshit crazy Predator 2 is.
Is this
And
the
I
Scream
think
3 for you? Like, can we, or is that what this is, or
it's
what?
kinda, but I don't feel guilty in liking it. I just purely fucking love this movie. Like I love the vibe of it. I love the city atmosphere. I love how sweaty the movie is. Like, it's just, to me, the whole thing comes together in the context of a bonkers '90s action movie. I think you can do almost no better than Predator 2. It is so cocaine fueled and so crazy. Like, literally, the movie opens with dudes doing cocaine, having shootouts with the cops, and Danny Glover coming in like a badass. And it's ultra violent. It's ultra over the top. It's 211 the entire movie, like almost the entire runtime of hour 45 minutes, whatever it is. It is to the hilt. Everything is super cranked up to 11. I think Danny Glover does a fine job as the action hero. I think he's. I haven't watched the Lethal Weapon movies all the way through in a long time, but I like Danny Glover in this movie. I think he's great. Bill Paxton, I've always been a big fan of. I think he's having a lot of fun. He knows what movie he's in. Maria Conchita Alonso knows what she movie. This movie has fucking Morton Downey Jr. in it, doing a show called Hardcore, which I love. Like just being silly. It's about Jamaican voodoo gangs, which make no sense because it should be like Haitian voodoo gangs, if anything. Why is it Jamaica? That doesn't make any sense. Why are they in LA? I don't care. I think it's super fun. The King Willie scene is great. I just like how just absolute bonkers this movie is, but I think it's extremely well done. I think it looks great. That my 4K looks incredible. This movie. I think the set design, production design is super over the top. Stephen Hopkins, who directed it, he does a lot of underrated movies that are better on rewatch. He did the fifth Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which is not a great movie, but it has really good production design and it looks good. And did Judgment Night, which is a really underrated '90s action movie with Emilio Estevez and Dennis Leary and stuff. Like he does a lot of underrated, cool kinetic movies, and I think this movie's great. Gary Busey fucking shows up in this movie and he's batshit crazy and he's awesome. Like he's, that whole sequence in the slaughterhouse is a lot of fun. It looks interesting. The sequence on the subway has a cool aesthetic with the strobe flashing lights and everybody going toe to toe with the Predator on the subway. Like I think the set pieces are incredible. I think Predator 2 is just one of the most entertaining movies ever made, period. I think this movie's fucking great. Like if you know what it is, if you go in looking for bonkers 90s action, I think you get exactly what you want. And that's why I just love this movie. I've watched it so many times.
How many, if you had to guess, how many times do you think you've seen it?
60, 70 times. Yeah. It's up there. Yeah. I put it on a lot. When I need something nuts, like just crazy, and like I've shown this movie to a lot of people, and like I fucking love this movie. Yeah, all these top three, my number two I've probably seen close to 100 times, and my number one I've seen close to 200 times. So yeah, I've wasted a lot of times on these movies, but I love them. But yeah, come on, in this movie, he fights a predator on the Predator ship at the end, mano a mano, toe to toe. You get the alien head. It was the first time we'd seen the alien head. The skull in the background in the trophy case, like they were setting up the future universe. Like there was some thought put into this movie, man. Like people are fans of Predator in this movie, and they're fans of Aliens who made this movie. So I just think this movie just kicks, man. It's super fun.
That is fair.
I just think the movie's the shit. We'll do a watch along one day. I'll watch Predator 2 with you and tell you why this movie's fucking awesome as we watch it, and be like, dude, look at this. This is amazing. Like, how can you not love this shit? Like, everything's great.
I will give you that. So I will actually do something unprecedented because I know where this is going to go. So I'm going to jump to my number 2 instead of saying my number 3 because I know my 3 is your 1 and my 1 is your 2. So my 3 is the only one that has. My only 2 is the only one that hasn't been talked about. So my number 2 is Alien. So since you already discussed that, I'm just going to jump Alien,
That's
and then
fine.
we'll just kind of double up so we don't have to backtrack. So Alien, this is a movie that I get what you're saying with you need to be in the mood for it, but there's something about that. I love the atmospheric horror where I can literally just fall asleep to this movie. I can just lay in bed, just have it in the background because it just sets that tone. It's literally that. And I love these characters. I love the dynamic between Parker and Brett, how they're just like, honestly, unless I'm one of the main, like the guys, like if I'm not the captain, I'm like Parker and Brett. I'm like, hey, when are we gonna get paid? I want the bonuses.
Dude, where's my hazard pay? Where's my overtime? That's the conversation. I'm a retail guy, so like I'm on a ground level worker. You know what I mean? You're a ground level worker. Like we would be like, when am I getting my paycheck for doing this bullshit? Like this little side mission. Like, am I gonna get paid for this shit?
I'm not saying I'm lazy, and I'm not saying I'm not willing to do this.
They're truckers. They're literally space truckers. They're space truckers. That's what they are. That's what they're described as. They're cargo. They ship cargo. They're shippers. It's like they're blue collar workers, and that's the thing. They're not soldiers like in the second one. They're just guys doing a cargo run, like, and having to deal with the situation. They're not warriors and not soldiers. I mean, there's some Yaphet Kotto's a big tough guy, but he's not like he's not a soldier. The Captain Dallas, I'm sure has done some stuff, but he's still a space trucking captain. He's not a a Marine or anything like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, that's what I like is the blue collar aspect of it.
And I just love the atmosphere that you build up. Like my favorite death is Brett's death. How it just really just sets
Mm.
up like the water dripping, the use of lighting. It a lot of people compare this movie to like Jaws, how it's very scarce with its use of the alien and the
Right.
xenomorph, and just it looks beautiful. Like, because if depending on the lighting, you can clearly tell it's a guy in a suit, or it's an animatronic or whatever they're
But
doing.
how he blends in with the
Yeah.
mechanics of the background, like the wall, like when she's on the pod at the end and he's right there sideways in the wall, but you don't see
Hiding
it
in the
unless you're
hole or
looking for
whatever.
it.
Yeah, it's
And then he just kind of slowly moves out and you go, holy shit, how it just blends right in with the
Yep.
wires and like all that stuff. Like it's cool, like the mechanical design of it.
and that's
It's awesome.
and it's one of those where you could just tell that like he knows like there's a story. Like at the time there,
Mhm.
you're not really expecting this to be a franchise. Like there's elements
Right.
that you can expand on, but this movie wasn't created to be a franchise. So you can watch this
No.
individually and just be in the mood for just this. And
Mhm.
even though it's not an action movie like Aliens, there is action elements to it. There's, like I said, the fantastic horror stuff.
Mhm.
Like this is like there's no point where anyone would deny that this is a horror movie. So like this is one of those movies where like if you're not into like slashers or like the cheesy horror like this, The Shining, Psycho, like those are the type of horror movies like they just transcend genre. They are the
Right.
epitome of what you want because it sets that tone and it is creepy because although obviously the concept of being with an alien is not realistic, the small scale and the something around the
Mhm.
corner that is just stalking you. So imagine this being like Max Cady, Robert De Niro, or
Yeah, right.
from those movies. It's a stalker, a creepy stalker who's going to kill you, but it's just an
Yeah.
alien. So it's the same concept.
Well,
Like,
and the concept of
in
in the slasher movie, you can escape the killer. You can go
Exactly.
somewhere. And the
This is
concept of
fine.
this
It's
one,
on the ship
you're on
and
a spaceship. Where the fuck are you gonna go? Like
and
you're
it's
in
literally
space.
one of the best
You
taglines
know,
of all time. Is like in space where
in
no one
space,
can hear you
no one can hear
scream.
you scream. Yeah.
Dude,
Mhm.
like
Yeah, yeah.
that
Yeah, where are you gonna go?
encapsulates so
You
much.
can't escape. Like you can get in an escape pod and escape, but like you're still in space. Like nobody's gonna
Or
come
you
and
can just
save
hide
you.
in the pod, but then you're trapped. And
Right.
now at that
You're
point, that
trapped.
alien has
Mhm.
nothing else to do. It could just wait.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's not. And
yeah,
also,
yeah.
and people bring this up all the time. Like you could kill the alien, sure, but it's gonna spit acid on you, and it's probably gonna kill
And
you. Yeah,
burn your ship up and burn a
yeah,
hole in the hole, and then you're
exactly.
still
So it's
screwed because you got space problems because you're in space.
yep.
So yeah,
And
that's
then
why
the
Event
design,
Horizon's a lot of fun too. Event
the two
Horizon's a horror
mouths.
movie with all the space
Yeah.
problems. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
There's so much of it. It just stands out on its own. And then you actually the face hugger, the scene, and it
Mhm.
takes the time with so like I mentioned earlier, like Alien and The Thing are my two like favorite like
Right.
pure horror movies. Like other movies like
Mhm.
have like drama, but like these are the two where you would say like they're like pure
Mhm.
horror, no doubt, sci-fi, I guess,
Right.
whatever. But in terms of, but
Yeah,
anyway,
sci-fi horror.
yeah, but these are the
Mhm.
two where it's like because they take their time setting it up, like the chest bursting scene in The Thing and the chest bursting scene here, where it's like it knows what it's doing and it sets up where you're like, oh wow, they saved him, hell yeah, like you're back, like cool, all right, everything's all good. Like what are you gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna have a nice hot meal or whatever he says, and then boom, you're like, oh shit. The first time that you see that, you're like, I did not see that coming. So if you were able to watch this and not
Mhm.
be spoiled from that, like you don't, because at that point it's balls to the walls because now you're in defensive mode. You know what I mean? Is this like it was actually just brought up. I was watching Logged It, and Boatman brought this up where it's like the first like half hour of this movie is like a hangout movie, and it's like you're really building
Mhm.
up these characters. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing that you don't
Yeah.
get in horror movies. You don't get quality, developed characters, but you get that in all these movies. Like I said, when you think of this movie, you think of Dallas, you think of Parker, you think of Brett, you think of Ripley, you think of Ash, you think of everything that
Mhm.
you get, and then the twist in Ash is like one of the first times, if not the first time, where like that happened, where it's like you're doing it and just because it's like your job and you need it for the science.
Yeah.
So it's like it really was a twist at that point because you don't really see that coming. You're like, oh damn, I thought he was on our side. It's a twist that he's an AI, but it's also a twist that like he's not
But it's
technically
got
evil,
that
he's doing
it's
his
got
job.
that 2001 element of like Mother is like Hal, where it's like we have the objective and we have the mission, and so like he has to do what Mother
At all
tells him to
costs.
do.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's like I gotta save this specimen, I gotta save this thing for
And that gives him some redeeming qualities at the end when he
the
kind of
crew is
helps.
expendable, and literally it says the crew is expendable, you save this thing. And yeah, and it's like, so he's not evil in a sense of he's maliciously on his own doing this. He's following orders to a T to where he has to do what he has to do, which is why the dynamic of Bishop in the later movie, where he can't harm humans, he's not allowed to harm humans, where they upgraded that, like it's, regardless of the order. So that's that dynamic of the second one. But yeah,
so
like that's what makes the first one interesting.
this is one that just honestly, like it just like even back when I was making my top 100, I just feel like I hadn't had it in. I haven't been a horror fan long enough to like 100% justify it being higher up. But I promise you, next year this is going to shoot up. And I'm not talking about just, mid tier. This is going to shoot up. This is going to be up there with the Scream and the Shining and the Psycho, like as like my top 5 horror, like high up in my list. I love this movie, and it's just one of those where I'm sad that I haven't loved it for longer, because this one means a lot to me. So Alien's my number 2. That was your number 3, and I'm gonna jump to my number.
It was my number 4. Predator 2
was my number 3. That made it even more. Trust me, we're gonna bring that up when we do the final ranking.
Right.
All right. So we'll jump to your number
2. Okay, my number 2 is Predator.
I had a feeling. I guess. Oh, yeah.
You know my number 1. Like anybody who knows me knows my number 1. It is what it is. But yeah, my number 2 is not Predator. It's just Predator.
Oh,
I already talked about Predators.
Right.
No, it's all good. No, Predator with Arnie. John McTiernan, man. It's. I mean, what can I add about a movie that's one of the seminal '80s, sci-fi action movies, ever? It does a brilliant job, and that part of this is John McTiernan, who obviously the year after would do Die Hard. I mean, he did 2 classics in a row. Again, setting up the reason why we care so much is the characters and the characters that we set up. This team, who from the get-go, yes, we know who Arnie is, and he stands out obviously, but then you get that brilliant helicopter sequence where they're going to the mission, and you get to know everybody's personality immediately. Like you get everybody. You get Ventura's the over the top, in your face, I'm the baddest mofo alive, and don't you forget it. You get Shane Black, he's the kind of the jokester, just trying to make people laugh, and he's kind of nerdy, but like, he's on the team for a reason. He's still probably a badass. Billy's the silent, tracker, you get that he doesn't talk much. He's just going to do his job. And, Carl Weathers is like the outsider, but he's still, you can tell he's got
too many pencils.
Pushing too many. See how I got you pushing too many pencils? And he's a badass, but like, he's going to do his thing. Bill Duke's another silent type who, he's got kind of a little mystery about him, that you want to see where he goes. But yeah, it does a brilliant job of just setting these guys up. You like them from the get go. You want to see what they're all about. And they keep, if you've never seen this movie, I always forget that you have the opening scene where the Predator pod shoots off to the thing. Like, I wish they had left that out, actually. And then you just kind of find out later. It would be a total twist, like a From Dusk Till Dawn type thing, where you see something tracking them, but you don't know what it is. I always forget that. I think that's kind of a mistake. But regardless of that, you're still slowly kind of the Predator vision and the cloaking. So, the Predator doesn't really do a lot till halfway through the movie. He doesn't really start attacking them till after the big action scene set piece.
What actually be cool? Instead of actually having the Predator, the ship, and actually seeing that, while we have Arnie on the chopper just coming in the
background or something.
It looked like a shooting star, and you don't know it.
Right.
But in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense that that's what that was. So, but it's still there, so it doesn't seem like it's coming out of nowhere. It's still technically sets it up, but it's not in your face, and it still adds that twist. So I would actually,
but if you had seen the trailers and it's coming, you still know it's coming. But even then, it's still working as a story of this team on this mission, where the mission is not what they think it is, and it kind of turns, and you find out Dylan's got this ulterior motive, and they still have to get out of the situation. It's still a hot zone. Like I could have just watched a movie about those guys, trying to get this out of the situation and getting chased and all that kind of stuff, and it still would have been a great action movie. And then you get into the second half where they're becoming the hunted, and these macho guys, they're the alphas, but they're not the alphas anymore. There's a bigger alpha, and whittling them down one by one. The way all that's executed is great.
Not just being an ultimate hunter, but also having the camouflage, this being invisible, and it's like just adding the layers of it. It has its alien technology, but it also has its hunting skills and its physical. It has all of its equipment that is just like, dude, it's how are you going to beat this? I mean, obviously,
How
we get to the
and
point.
and
Yeah,
and
we've
how do you
already
beat it? You don't beat it with brute strength and guns and stuff. You beat it by going back to your guerrilla warfare and your primal skills and your survival instincts.
and
That
sometimes
I'm
you just
sure
walk into
again,
it, you get a little dirty,
yeah,
and you realize,
sometimes
hey,
you get a little mud on you, and you kind of figure it out as you go. But the fact that he has to go back to just being this caveman mentality, basically at the end, and just fight this thing, with his basic skills and setting up traps and find the thing literally with a bow and arrow, it's just cool.
it's
And how
Rambo
it
like.
gets so stripped down at the end. Yeah, it's so stripped down and becomes a whole different movie. It's this big macho action guns blazing movie, and it becomes this very stripped down movie. It's just the way it just progresses is so brilliant and just
And
so
also, this
excellent.
this is one of the most quotable movies of all time. This is the one
Oh,
where
it's
you just
great.
like people sometimes don't even know what they're quoting it from. They just know the quotes because of just how much it's quoted. And
Yeah.
also, like it's the two that are like some of the most famous is Get to the Chop, obviously, but in the context of
Mhm.
the film, it's him being like the leaders, like get to the chop, like save your. It's
Yeah.
essentially him saying save yourself,
Yeah.
but as a one-liner, and that's just it stands out. And then my other favorite one, especially in the context of the scene, is when when the Predator finally takes off his mask to show his face. You're one ugly
Well,
motherfucker.
the
But,
motherfucker. Yeah.
in the context of the scene, at that point, it's becoming a dick measuring contest. The Predator shows
Hmm.
Arnie some respect. He's like, "I'm going to show you my true face. I'm going to this.
Hmm.
You've earned this." And it's one of those where it's like,
Well, and he strips off his armor. He's like, "We're
"Yeah,
gonna fight. Like, we're gonna
exactly."
go
And
mano a
then he
mano
hits
and
them
toe to toe.
with
Let me
that
see what you got."
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
becomes and
Let's
it's one of those
go.
where it's like people underestimate like how much that like it sets up like the actual that's the difference between like this and Predators for me, where it's like the Predator,
Mhm.
you don't need to know why, you just know that he's like, hey, this is personal now, and like this
Yeah.
is it's a combination of like you've earned my respect, but also it's personal, and you've kind of pissed me off, and I'm really gonna get you. Whereas in Predator, it's kind of just doing its thing. So like that's why this one kind of separates itself, and it's like it's just and it's so much fun. It's not long. It has different. I think that's what like why this is my one, obviously. But this is
Yeah.
my one, and Alien is my two. Whereas like they have multiple genres within the film. Like it's an action, it's a comedy, it's a sci-fi, it's a horror. Even some moments in this week because you don't know what you're gonna do, and it's like an adventure, saving the girl from that the camp of being
Mhm.
tortured from the what are they, Cambodians? I think is that what they are, or I don't remember. Brazil,
It's like Colombians or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or Cambodia, something like that. Whatever. It doesn't really matter.
it's the
Yeah.
element, yeah, it's the element of them being mercenaries, but also having layers. So like they're gonna save this girl because they don't really know what their objective is, and it's
Well,
like they're on a
again,
mission, and
he says we're not assassins. We're a rescue team. We're a
exactly,
rescue operation. We're not assassins. When Gar Weathers is using them as assassins, unbeknownst to them, like he's like, that's not what we do, dude. We're like a rescue operation.
exactly.
We kill when we have to. Obviously, like we're good at it, but like we're not here to do shit. To assassinate people and wipe out villages. Like that's not what we do. But yeah, I think this movie just kicks on every cylinder. Every character is memorable and great, which is the difference between a lot of action movies, around the same time, is you remember everything. You remember all the side, Bill Duke, and like I said, Billy, the Native American, like he's great. Just everybody in this movie is great, and I just love it so much. Yeah, Predator's immensely rewatchable. You can
Yeah,
always get
and so
something out
so
of
the
it.
reason this is my one and Alien as of right now is my two is just because of the Arnie thing. That's the separate. I just love Arnie so much.
Mhm.
Where I'm like, all right, if I'm really picking at hairs, which one am I going to put on first? I'm going to put on Predator.
Right.
So it's like, but honestly, like both of these
Yeah.
are going to shoot up eventually, and they're going to probably be in my top 30. Like
Mhm.
they're ones that I'm going to watch multiple times this year, and so my next one, they're going to shoot up. So Predator and T2 and Total Recall are like my top 3 Arnie movies, where it's like this is
Nice.
Arnie doing his
Yeah.
thing because it's not just cliche action stuff. There's layers to it. And I
No,
love
I
that.
think he's genuinely good in the movie too.
Yeah.
When like after, yeah, you get the typical like when they're doing the stuff and he's doing the knock knock or stick around, all this. He gets out all the way, but like later in the movie when he's just like doing the if it
When he
bleeds, we
becomes
can kill
Rambo,
it. Like,
essentially, he
yeah,
is
he's really
fantastic.
good. And even some of the stuff I like the most in the movie is the slow progression of Billy and how scared he gets because he's realizing what's going on, but he's not really sharing it. But he knows that
He knows we're
something's hunting
fucked.
him.
Yeah.
He knows what's good when he just breaks down and he goes, and the one dude's like, "Man, you ain't afraid of no man. What are you scared?" He's just like,
That ain't no
something
man.
out there on the hunting us, and it ain't no man. We all gonna die. Like I'm
Yep.
just like, that's haunting, man. Like
And-
we all gonna die.
And we
just like,
haven't
oh
touched
shit.
on it yet, but the ripping out the spines and like how that's their
Oh,
trophy,
dude,
like
it's
oof,
brutal.
geez. Like that
It's fucking
that's what
brutal.
stands out for this character, where it's like that
Yeah.
is like it's literally he's hunting for a trophy. It's not just hunting just to kill, which you see in like Michael Myers.
And the concept of skinning people like is creepy, you know, like seeing like skinned bodies hanging from trees, like it's creepy, man. It's just really creepy. But yeah, for Predator is great. Like Predator's awesome. Predator rocks. Like it's
Absolutely.
amazing.
But
And
even
you
though
know
that's
my number one. Yeah, you
your
know
number
my number
one
one. You know my number one is Aliens. Like anybody who knows me knows my number one is Aliens. I've seen it's my number one
is my
movie
number
of all
three.
time. Period. It's my number of all time. Period. And again, I've seen this movie 200 plus times. I mean, I could watch this movie once a week and be perfectly fine with it. You know what I mean? Everything just for me works. Again, much like Predator, I like that we get to know all these Marines. They all stick out. They all make an impression. We get time to get to know them on the ship. In the tanks. In when they're flying down. Even just the little moments they have while they're doing their perimeter searches of the colony, all the stuff, the little lines, everybody has a distinct personality. Everybody stands out. Ripley, much like in T2 with Sarah Connor, she's she takes command in this movie. She literally has that moment where she's like, fuck this. Like, I'm going in there. She takes command of the damn, of the tank. And she's like, I'm taking over. Like, screw you. Like, I'm getting these guys out and I'm going to do what I got to do to save these people and do my thing. So she's just one of the great female action heroes of all time, obviously because of this movie. It started out in Alien, but like Aliens, she's full on. Like she takes charge and she's doing her thing. And
it took what we started in Alien and it just built upon it. It didn't retread it. It wasn't a rehash. It was built upon, and it's so smart. And that's crazy that it was two different directors. And that's what I think people don't give enough credit to that, where it's like they give a lot of credit to it turning into an action movie and it's a lot of fun, and Ripley as a character just being awesome, but they forget that's like to have a character as memorable and an Oscar nominated actress for this role from two different directors, you know what I mean? So that it was created by someone else, and James Cameron came in and was able to like build upon it. That's
but still honor that what the core of the Alien thing is, but expand on it. You expand on it with the Hive, with the Queen. The Queen itself is incredible to look at. I mean, like a 15 puppeteer, real monster. Like this thing is scary. Like when she first sees this thing, like this thing works, and like it's awesome. Like all the practical shit. Again, I'm big on practical effects, man. And like you have Predator has that practical alien, like when he strips off and that makeup effects and that suit is great. Like when he pulls the thing off and it's the Rick Baker like mouth and all that shit is great. And then
I forgot to mention the sound, the ticking, the sound.
Yeah. The little clicking. That's Frank Welker, by the way, who's amazing. Like he's always the animal guy for like every movie. But yeah, like and in fact, this one you get the great Stan Winston like mechanics and puppetry and the animatronics and even the guys in the suits obviously still and the mechs, the loader, basically a mech suit. Like it's awesome, man. Like the fact that the movie climaxes with her in a big giant loader fighting a real Queen thing, like, and they're having a fight. Like it's not CGI, it's not stop motion, it's real. Like it's right there, it's raw.
And one of the most memorable lines of all time.
Oh, come on, get away from her, you bitch. But it's earned at that point. Like it's earned. Like when she does that, even every time I watch the movie, I'm just like, fuck yeah, dude. Like kick her ass.
There's one of those things. I was watching a Chris Duckman review, and I hadn't watched the special edition / the theatrical cut or the director's cut in a long time, but I'd seen it, so I forgot that it was only in the director's cut. But her being a mom, like it's one of those where on rewatch, I just know that, you know what I mean. So like when I watch the theatrical cut, which I will say the theatrical cut is the director's cut.
It's the super. No, it's the superior cut. If I could make a Pez cut, my proposal, I would keep in the scene where she learns about her daughter dying, because I think that's important. But I would get rid of the part where they go visit Newt's family and you see them before they get to the colony. I would cut all that because it's unnecessary. Because I think the best stuff in the movie is when they're exploring and you're slowly learning what happened to the colony. I think the mystery of it is better.
You start to see everyone
piece it together. Yeah, the pictures and the half-eaten donuts and the hamsters running around. You know what I mean? Like everything happened quickly. Like you get this idea that everything just went to shit like really quick.
Because with that type of
fast.
story, you want to learn about that stuff as the characters learn about it. You don't
Right.
want because a flashback in that is just exposition. It's essentially
Mhm.
visual exposition. Whereas when you're seeing it you're able to piece it together. That you trust your audience to know that they can figure that out.
It hits harder with Newt when they're kind of interrogating her after they find her, and she just goes, "They're dead. All right, can I go now?" You know, like you get all you need to know about that is like she had a family and they're dead now, just like everybody else. You know, like and she survived somehow, and you know she's doing her thing. Like, but you learning about that through the line, you don't need all that shit at the beginning in the director in the special edition with like her running around with her brother. Like you don't need all that. But yeah, the stuff I think keeping if I can make my own custom cut and keeping the stuff where she learns about her daughter getting old and dying, and then I think it makes the Newt relationship that much better. But I think you could get that from the movie without that, you know, like that she, you know, that she's got that motherly thing going.
You can put two and two
yeah, you can put two together, and that's what I think is James Cameron does not treat his audience like they're dummies. Like he knows how to make them smart.
Even if it wasn't obvious, it's still the parallel of the Queen alien and now the Queen of the ship in Ripley. Like just it's
right
the
Queen versus Queen. Yeah,
even if she's not a technical mother figure, she's still a queen, and she's built up to being the boss. So it's finally two bosses coming together. So no matter what, however you think about it, it still earns it on its own. So I'm totally cool with that. So
yeah.
I want to give you a. All right. So how do I want to phrase this?
Oh boy.
I've gone through multiple.
You have like one quibble with a movie? Okay,
no,
hit me.
As a whole, I've gone through multiple emotions with this movie because
okay.
It was so high for me before. Like, you know, it was in my top 10 when back, you know, 7 years ago, almost at this point, where it's like 6 years ago, where I've always liked it. I'll even say, I'll never say I never liked it. You know what I mean? But it got to a point where I became more of the horror guy, and the more atmosphere guy. As I was watching it, the length got to me. I watched the director's cut or special edition, whatever it was, and that extra 30 minutes, I was like, dude, this movie is brutal to get through.
That cut drags. That's why I'm a proponent of the theatrical cut. The original theatrical cut is the superior
but I'm giving
cut.
You the backstory of just my thing to it. Right. Where it's like that last 20-30 minutes is balls to the wall, top tier cinema. So, but getting to that point, you're like, oh my God, this is a chore to get through. So like every subsequent rewatches, even on the theatrical, I'm like, oh my God, I just want to get to that finale. I'm not really, you know, let's go. So it's just been one of those where it's just dropped and dropped and dropped. So I finally did one more. I've actually watched this 3 times before making this list because I'm like, I don't want to be wild. I don't want to just say shit just to say shit. And the more as I watched the other ones and started to like them, I was like, all right, where am I going to put this in my ranking? Like and there was a point where I thought The Predator might go over this just because I was like, maybe that would just be more fun and more watchable. So on the last rewatch, I finally put it in bed, and ironically, I didn't even get to the finale, but the first hour, finally, I was just in the right mood finally, and the first hour flew by because I was actually caring about the characters because it was, you know, building up all the dream sequences stuff, everything getting with the Marines, building up who they are because it reminds you like, yo, they just got dumped into this assignment. They don't know the backstory, so they're learning as you're learning.
Well, they think it's another bug hunt, is what they said. And that you can tell they've been on these hunts where they've hunted these random creatures on other planets, like because they infer it with this, is it going to be another bug hunt, you know, where we're like, you know, just shooting like, you know,
at that
bugs
point,
or, you know, like,
the alien is a myth. They really
or it's going to be some insect or you know just some bullshit, you know, like just something that they procedurally have to deal with, but it's not going to be a threat, you know, like they don't see it because again it feels like they're on procedural kind of stuff, like they go and do these cleanups, and what they were there to do is to clean up these planet areas, colonies before they go inhabit them, so they go and clean up whatever they encounter and kind of get rid of all that stuff. So like they just think it's going to be another cleanup assignment, whatever. And it's this routine thing. We haven't even talked about Paul Reiser. He's great as that fucking weasel. Like he's such a great corporate weasel in that movie. Like such a slime bag.
So satisfying.
Yeah, it's just like he's so slimy and great.
The best scene is
he's awesome.
It's you know, Sam Raimi took inspiration with his stuff, but in the room when they're trapped and you have the face hugger in there, and it's just so scary and creepy. When you watch the Spider-Man 2 scene where it kind of has that.
The tentacles and shit.
It's one of those where that like I said, that's when you get it's atmospherical. You're enclosed in the one area, and it does a great job of, you know, still having all those highlight moments. So it's one of those where it's like I've been mad at myself for not liking it. I've had multiple reviews of this where I'm like, I'm so conflicted. Like, is it the runtime? Is it just my memory of that special edition that just really pisses me off? I'm like, it doesn't need to be this long? It's an action movie. Why is it 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
So I just need to watch the 2 hour and 15-minute cut like
Just
5
stick
more
with the
times
theatrical
and
cut.
just forget.
Yeah, stick with that.
Just throw away all the other one because every time I watch, I'm like, that ending is so great, and I love these characters. It's quotable. If I took a popcorn trivia quiz on there, and I was like, I'm getting all these questions right. I know this movie, so I finally was like, all right, let me get out of my own head. I love this movie, and it's back up. So it jumped up to number 3. There was a small stretch where I'm like, do I want to put Covenant and Prometheus over it? Do I want to put Alien 3 over it? Like, I was really conflicted.
Right.
This has been a interesting ranking for me, and I'm so glad that you pitched this because this was a fun one.
Yeah,
for me. So
yeah.
I'm happy that we talked about this. Alien and Predator. They're a blast,
It's
and
good
like
shit,
you said,
man.
They don't feel the same. You know what I mean?
None of them feel the same. Alien and Aliens, you can watch them back to back because literally Aliens picks up. Technically, it's 57 years later, but like it picks up where she's in that conference room and they're interrogating her about what happened in the first movie. So like it picks up right after that, even though it's years later. She's talking about well, no, this thing wiped out my crew. How many times I got to tell you this thing? We picked up the all that stuff. Like you can pick it up right afterwards, and it still follows the continuity. It flows well with the first one. It's just a different vibe, and it's just a different feel. And like I said, it's more of a sci-fi action film. A couple of horror elements, but like still a sci-fi action movie. But yeah, and that's the thing. I have nothing against anybody who like. There's definitely an aliens camp. Like there's two camps of like the people who prefer Alien over Aliens and the people who prefer Aliens over Alien. And again, I'm a horror guy. I love it. Like Alien's great. Like I realize it's a masterpiece of like sci-fi horror. It's fantastic. Like, and I have nothing against it. It's like how I'm the opposite where I vibe with the original Terminator just a tad more than Terminator 2, only because I like the horror elements of that movie, over Terminator 2. And maybe we'll talk about that when we get to Terminator versus RoboCop. Which we'll do eventually. So we'll do that eventually to stretch that one out and have a little fun with that. But only because that first Terminator feels like a slasher movie, like with this unstoppable killer, stalking her. And I vibe with that. But again, it's nothing against Terminator 2. It's one of the fucking greatest action movies of all time. And I can watch it any minute. And I've seen it 100 damn times. Like it has nothing against that. It's not where I'm knocking it because I prefer one or the other, which is why I don't knock anybody who says I like Alien just slightly more than Aliens. That's fine. I get it.
People,
like,
when
totally
they have that conversation, they're still saying the other one's good or great, even.
That's the thing. It's like
the other one's worst.
You can like both of them. It's whatever one you connect with, and that's fine. Like you don't have to just because you rank one as just slightly above the other one. I think there's this internet thing of like, oh, that means you're crapping on the other one. It doesn't mean that at all. Like Alien is a fucking masterpiece. I just watch Aliens more because I click with it. Like I just click with everything about it. So that's just what it is. And I've just watched it more. So it has nothing against that. And people who love Alien over Aliens, I get it. And that's totally cool. And I have no problem with people who say that because I understand that viewpoint. And that we could have this understanding on the internet, people. Like it doesn't mean you're knocking the other one and completely like shitting on it. Like we have this 10 versus 0 mentality where everything's either a 10 or a 0. And just because you like you can have a 9.5 movie and still say it's amazing.
That's another reason why when we do these rankings, I like to implement the rating because it's like even though it's number 8, it's still a 4-star. Like when we did Tarantino or when we did Nolan, Nolan, all of them. No, which one did we do? Where all of them were 5 stars. Saw
that right? was
we did one. No, I think all 5. But anyway,
I think yours was with Tarantino yours was for almost like that. But
But the point is, regardless of the ranking, that's why I like to implement the score. So at least gives a little context of like, ranking doesn't determine quality or love for, and also rating doesn't determine overall quality. You know what I mean? So like add a little context and have it's a combination of the conversation.
Have the conversation. You got to see where people are coming from. Like yes. If you were to look at my rankings and go, what the fuck? He puts Predator 2 over Alien? Like, is he out of his goddamn mind? But like, you hear me talk about like just how much on a primal level I just love Predator 2 as a piece of entertainment, and like how just a batshit 90s action movie entertainment, and I explain it to you, like, and you could, like, you may not agree, and that's fine, but like, if you can hear people out and understand where they're coming from, you know what I mean? Have the conversation and just listen to it, like, I think that's the more important thing of like seeing why they click with that. When we talked about Tarantino and I had, Hateful Eight so high and you had it a little lower, and you never said it was a bad movie. It's just like you clicked with other movies better. But like, you heard my passion of why I love the Hateful Eight so much. We can have that conversation, and like, you get where
Honestly,
they're coming from. You see the passion
your
for it.
passion for Alien 3 is the reason why I gave it a second chance, and then I was able to discuss it. Now, boom, it's high up there. And then even just our conversation on Covenant, there's a chance that if in this hypothetical world, say a third one does come out, and hearing the conversation that I talked about Covenant, you watch that third one, you're like, now it all clicks. That's exactly what I was looking for.
And I go back and watch the entire trilogy as like a one piece, and then maybe it just flows and it clicks and everything makes sense. Like, I could recontextualize something. Yeah, totally. It's if that ever happens, I don't know if it'll happen. That's the thing with, I don't know where these franchises are going now that it's up in the air now that Fox is folded. Who knows where it's going to go? Like I said, I've heard rumors of an Alien series, I guess, of something, but I don't know what the premise is. So I guess that's the next thing on the horizon. Everything kind of moving to TV, but yeah, like, we'll see where these franchises go. But it's probably going to be all the movies we get for a little while. That's probably all I'm going to say. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to get another installment from either franchises for a while, at least theatrically. So,
but as of right now, these are the 12 we have. And with that said, our combined lists.
I threw a wrench in there with the Predator 2, so have fun with that. And the Alien Covenant are the two we threw the wrenches in.
I don't know if you ever rewatch these, but if you watch, you'll see that I'm trying to do some math. I'm like, all right. I want to respectfully order these and not be biased, and I'm doing numbers.
No. And I understand I'm a complete outsider when it comes to Predator 2, although, to be fair, if you look online, there is a passionate cult following for Predator 2, and it's slowly turning around. Like, where it used to get crapped on all the time, there is a following for that movie that I'm in the camp of. So I'm not alone in that. I will say that. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just say that. Yeah, I'm not by myself.
And like I said, even though it was at the bottom, it was still a 3-star movie. So I'm not mad at it. But with that said, we both agreed that number 12, Alien vs. Predator. Number 11, Alien vs. Predator.
Makes sense. That's fine.
It didn't have enough. So 9 and 10, they were tied in terms of like the average score. But I feel like we had more positives with 9. So number 10 is The Predator. And then number 8, Alien Resurrection. So I feel like we were trying to hype it up more, and we were kind of like justifying why we had the Predator.
Well, it's still on the lower end of like that mid tier. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool with it being on the lower end of the mid tier because it's a wacky movie, like it all, for all purpose, but it's still fun. Like,
speaking of wacky, number 8, Predators.
Yeah.
Number 7, it's gonna upset you. Alien Covenant. It went a little higher.
I understand. It's fun.
Number 6 is its brother, Prometheus. Number 5, this is all you.
Predator 2. Predator 2 rocks.
Top 5. Wow.
You can't see the eyes of the demon.
Speaking of
until him come calling.
Speaking of people, if out of context, if they just see this final ranking, our number 4 is going to blow a lot of people's minds. Alien 3.
Okay.
And speaking of blowing people's minds, number 3, Alien.
Right.
And because this was my number 3 and your number 1, number 2 is Aliens, and our number 1 is Predator. So that is our combined.
Yeah, but again, those top 3, Alien, Predator, and Aliens, are all like masterpieces.
In the Facebook group, I literally said which one's your favorite, and I didn't put any other ones because the other ones are not the face. It's not the top
like
3.
Everybody. Yeah, all 3. All 3 of those movies. Well, actually, Alien is Predator 2, Predator, and Aliens are all in my top 64. Alien is like in my top 100, but not my top 64, oddly enough. But yeah, like remember I did my top 64 and Predator showed up in one bracket, and then literally the next bracket Predator 2 was there, and they were like, "What the fuck? Are you out of your goddamn mind? Like,
there's a typo?
Are you insane?" Like, yeah, you put that in as a joke, right? And it's like, no. But yeah, like it's but yeah, Alien Aliens and Predator are all pretty much agreed they're the tops of those franchises. You know, they're the pinnacle. They're the originals. They're still the best. Like, you know, they are the top tier. So, yeah, they're great. Like, you know, everybody's prompted up, but they're up there for a reason. You know, they're fucking awesome.
All right, so give the people at home what's on the docket for upcoming.
Oh, right. So upcoming, I believe next week we're completely switching gears to more of a comedic with Kevin Smith. So that's going to be another big one, because that's even bigger. That's 13 movies, I believe, if I did my math right. So that's even bigger than 12. But again, a lot of different movies in there. There's a lot of USQ movies that are similar, but there's some really crazy movies in the second half of his career that, you know, could throw things out of whack. So, yeah, Kevin Smith is our next filmographer, and then our next franchise will be Lethal Weapon after that, a much smaller one, only 4 movies. So we can expand on more of the
break. Yeah.
Well, but we could go smaller, but like talk more about the movies, kind of like Rambo. You know, we can talk more about the meat of the movies and see where we go. So, yeah, but that's on the immediate docket coming up. So that's our next filmmaker and franchise.
I'm excited for that, and you know, like I keep telling you, I love this show. I love that we can just really just shoot the shit and just express our love and just our opinions of these films. You know, just because of the development of the show, it made me want to watch the Child Play movies, which I just bought because I'm watching those. I've been really wanting to get a hold of all the Halloween movies, all the Friday the 13th movies, all the Nightmare movies. You know,
and like I said, I'm really excited for us to do Terminator versus RoboCop, which is my idea, because I you know, you could do just the Terminators. There's 6 of them. You could do them, but I think you spice it up a little bit with 4 RoboCop movies and make it a 10, and you could really get spicy. And it's all, you know, it's cyborgs, it's, you know, sci-fi. It's similar, and they've had crossovers in comics and video games too. So I think it's appropriate. So, you know, you can have a lot of fun with that.
And then we can get real weird once we start you know, developing, you know, our rapport, and it's like now we can just do top 10s, and it's like my 2 favorite actors, Leo and Brad. Combine the 2, and what's our top 10? And that would be an interesting list. And, you know, stuff like that. You know, you get like predominant 80s actors, and, you know, Arnie and Sly, we've talked about that in the chat. You know, there's things where we can just have some fun with this, and I'm excited.
Yeah, we want to do Arnie and Sly, but like non-franchise picks, like, and nothing that's, you know, all one-off stuff that's not connected to anything. And that could be all over the place because they've each done 60, 70 something movies, you know, like it could be all over the place. So yeah, I want to do that too. We're going to have a lot of fun in the future with some of these topics. It's going to be fun.
So with that, this was Alien and Predator franchises. I had a blast. Make sure you check out everything Austin does over on the Movie Hero Network.
Speaking of that, I'm literally going to hop off. He just threw out the link, so I'm going to hop off and go to a tier ranker fight like right now in just a second. And we're doing winter sports. We're wrapping up our sports series. But yeah, tier ranker fights, tournament fights, all on the Movie Hero Network. Check it out.
Absolutely. And so if you're on this channel, make sure you check out There Will Be Trivia and Creighton got a debate show thing in the works, and then the roundtable. So I'm Henry Confidential. That is Austin Peshal. This is where we rank stuff, and today was Alien and Predator. Bye, guys.
See ya.